Peter Boyle's back in for the guys, and good morning. It's a Friday, September 27, 2024. The fellas have the morning off. I'm here and back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. It is going to be one of those days. 710 KNUS Weather Center weather says 87 for the high today, 57 tonight, 88 Saturday and Sunday. For the 11th annual MC1 Honor Run, it will be 90 degrees. Blake's World. Is the boy standing by? My boy.
Here. What's up, Pete?
Blake's World.
Not my world.
It is good, man. Good to be in here. Good to be with you.
Man. Great to see your face and hear your voice.
Back in the saddle.
And you got the MC run tomorrow. Wow.
Sunday.
Oh, Sunday.
MC1 Honor Run later on in the morning. Mark Miller and Frank DeAngelis will be with us.
Wow.
The 11th annual. Wow.
That is amazing.
So we got that.
Amazing.
And
great weather.
Ooh, and this is a day, let's talk about bittersweet. They are auctioning off Vandermeer Speedway, all the stuff that John has had up there for years.
Wow.
And we'll try and get John on this morning, but the auction, imagine that, the auction at Vandermeer Speedway.
Wow.
And all the forever stuff that's been up there. And of course, as you know, that the Vandermeers have sold the Speedway. And there is talk. We can ask John about building a new one, but it's bittersweet. I spent a lot of summers up there.
I bet.
And now it's going to be auctioned off. I wonder if, well, I haven't talked to John, but we'll see if we can get him on the show this morning and talk. But Frank's on, Mark's on, but we're going to Lebanon this morning at 7 o'clock. And Father Andre Mahana, who is in Beirut, and I spoke with him yesterday, and it's pretty crazy right now. So he'll be on the show.
Oh,
and so it's a big lineup. Here's my kickoff.
Uh-huh.
Ready for this?
Yep.
Have you ever? No, I can't even ask you that because I'm going to try and pull this off with like the horse with no name, the show with no name callers. Have you ever been the vice president has said she wants to legalize prostitution. She wants to decriminalize sex workers. And this is to, I would say men, but I suspect it could be the other way as well. Phone number is 303-696-1972. Have you ever been, you don't have to use your name.
No, I've never been a sex worker. No.
I've tried. Nobody wanted.
Sorry,
I've tried, but nobody wanted to buy anything. So.
Right. Didn't work out too well.
On down the road, kicking rocks. And it's like, now, this is like and I ran this by Kelly Michaels yesterday, and because she has backed legalization, decriminalization of prostitution. And she hasn't changed her mind, or at least maybe she'll dodge and duck. I don't know. But she's up for the highest office in the land, and the campaign was refusing now to say whether or not her stand holds. She herself, of course, is 59 years old. So in my world, she's a relatively young woman. And she wants to decriminalize prostitution. Now, I have... in Europe, anybody that's, well, I shouldn't say anybody because plenty of people go to look at the art, but have you ever, if you go to Europe and walk into one more church, one more cathedral, you're going to shoot yourself. You heard those tours? Get in a bus. Now we're going to go see St. Andrews. Oh, man. But,
oh, man. Not another church.
Not another art gallery. But
that's funny.
But anyhow, one of her first acts I read all day yesterday about this. One of her first acts as an elected official, she sponsored a bill into law. And remember when Arnold was governor, Schwarzenegger's governor, and had the penalties for adults. And it turned out to be this overlooked significant moment. So, and of course, Israel and Lebanon and everything else that's going on. And by the way, the money line, you remember, I don't know if you and I talked about this, but forget polling. Look at the money line.
Yeah, what is the money line?
Interesting you would ask. Just a second. I read.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I don't get to do this that often, you know.
No,
So
it's awesome.
let's see. It's just a second because I brought it in. There it is, under the stack of books. Polymarket is a platform where users can place yes or no bets on the likelihood of world events, which I didn't know about till I found this yesterday.
Yeah, really.
Polymarket identified Pennsylvania as the closest swing state, with Donald Trump narrowly leading Harris 51-49, the state's 19 electoral votes. And so on the other hand, there's just up and down the line on the money line. And I'll just read this to you. Swing states will determine, we've talked about this, the nation's next president, online prediction markets, and they're really closely matched in the battleground states. But it's the betting platforms that I think are reasonable, and I suspect they're far more accurate. Oh, I'm sure. And if you look into the opinions of the population of people who bet on betting platforms, I have scared money. I'm not much of a gambler, but
same here.
Yeah, as much as you follow sports.
Yeah, I don't gamble though.
I don't either.
Yeah, it's never really interested me. Thank God.
No, that's right. I mean, so betting odds on the presidential race. There's a whole lot of things that say things, but silly polls are one thing, and everybody gets mad and talk radio about polling. But putting out betting odds, I think, is a different beast. Yeah, I think so. And so anyhow, they overall, she has an edge right now, and which I'm sure is not a shock to anybody. But the betting platforms, I suspect, are far more accurate than a poll. But she has a slight edge. It's crazy. No, it is. But amazing. Yeah, no. So anyhow, 303-696-1971. Have you ever been, or how do you feel about legal prostitution, legalizing sex workers? How are you going to stop it? I mean, it's they say it's the second oldest profession. The first would be? What is the first?
Motherhood.
No, that's like fatherhood, please. It's believed to be farming.
Oh, farming. Yeah.
That's right. Scratch and burn and farm. And here's one I read, whether it's true or not. The first domesticated animal. You would think it's a dog, right? Yeah, I would. Then we would be wrong. Parakeet? Chickens. Oh, chickens. In what's Southeast Asia today. Yeah, that makes sense. Sure it does, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, that chickens may have been, or may be because I always thought it was dogs. Yeah, same here. That, dogs came closer to the fire and somebody threw them a hunk of meat and they became dogs. Yeah. Not so fast.
Well, then chickens got a bad deal.
Well, like all this insanity, I haven't worked since the Haitians are eating the dogs, but I was in Haiti after the quake. Kenny and I were there. Kenny Danon and I, we were there. Yeah. And the sacrificial animal is a chicken. Yeah. They don't kill dogs and chickens, and they don't eat them either, but they're sacrificial. And in the Middle East, it's goats and lambs. And, old traditional Hebrews sacrifice lambs, right? Yeah. And they actually attempted it in the Temple Mount. A bunch of Israelis tried to go up and sacrifice, and that's right. It's all the stuff that kicks everything around again. And then we got that to talk about this morning. I mean, I hope the phone call goes through to Andre. But that's going to be fascinating. I talked to him yesterday. It's awful. Oh God, it is horrible. He is so insightful when you talk to him. Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. So anyhow, what is horrific? What is in the new? Oh, by the way, tomorrow, because I work tomorrow, Chris Sheldon's on the show, and he's come out from inside Scientology. Oh, wow. And he's written a book. You know who Xenu is? Do you guys know who Xenu is? I don't know who Xenu is. The evil space dictator.
Oh no.
Oh man,
No.
you got to pay a lot of money to find that out, but you get it free here.
Wow.
Xenu is they have this, and it's a great story. There was this evil space dictator named Xenu, and inside of your body are thetans. I mean, we'll get into this tomorrow, but then you got to get the thetans out, and you have to get. Yeah, well, sure. And you got to pay a lot of money to get that done.
I bet.
And so this guy, Chris Sheldon, was high-ranking guy, and he bailed, and he's written a book, Scientology A to Xenu, and it's actually very good.
Very nice.
And
so when did you read it? Last week?
No, I read it. I read this about it's been out about a year.
Is that right?
Yeah, I read it and I'm currently reading Follow the Plan about QAnon. And it's striking, not that QAnon has QAnon has Q, right? But they don't have, they're not, this is going to sound really, really, really strange. QAnon is not as crazy as Scientology. So how's that?
I would agree with that. That's my guess. I don't know. Scientology seems a little, yeah, that's a little frightening. Man.
Oh, it's way scary.
Right.
And I'm on
From what I've heard.
I've been since KOA and KHOW. I've been on their list. They have a list of people.
Is that right?
Yeah, I've been on it. They came,
wow.
They came to the radio station about it. But then they had people call me and everything, and I knew too much.
Man.
You know, because I would say, for instance, you remember when do you remember when they would have they'd try and sell that book Dianetics on television?
Yes.
Dianetics.
Ron Hubbard
there you go. L. Ron. Very
L.
good.
Ron.
L. Ron.
Yeah.
And remember, and they would have what was on the cover of that thing, but you would ask them, why is this on the cover? Oh, volcano. It was a volcano.
Oh, that's right.
Remember, you say, and they go, I don't know. I have not received that information. Well, let me break it to you. The volcano is there because when the little things, they went down in the volcanoes. When, you know, this big space thing, and then these people came in airplanes, and anyhow, so, but I would always tell them, well, why is the volcano on Dianetics? And they'd get robotic.
Really?
Oh, they go, I have not received that information.
What?
Oh, no, it's why it's there.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Stick with me.
I'm going to stick with you.
But they came down, they saw Chris Ollinger. And I said, well, come on, let's do the radio show. Let's do the radio show. Remember, and I think one of these guys, I don't know if it was Chris or whoever it was, because they told you they would increase your IQ points. That was one of the promises. Wow, we're both in trouble. But
well, what did their eyes look like when you were looking at them?
I never met one. I mean, the best of my knowledge, I never met one. They brought this book, and it was like this really big coffee table book, and they gave it to Chris to give it to me, and I got it someplace, and it's all about the wonders of Scientology. But, so we're gonna do that tomorrow.
All right.
So then, what a lineup from prostitution to Scientology. And what?
Only with Pete.
And what's the difference?
Really, exactly.
On one, you get your money's worth.
That's right.
Hey, what's that storm doing?
That's funny. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's thankfully it didn't develop into what they thought, but here in Denver, it's 59 and sunny, and expecting a high of 85 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I just checked the weather in between my lives, and it looks like at 2 a.m. the water might start going down. But in the meantime, it's going up. The foundation of the house, like all this water is bubbling underneath the foundation. So that's not good. I think that's like how sinkholes happen.
So that's a man in Florida in his kayak inside his house going live. Helene is now a tropical storm, but still dangerous. Forecasters say tornadoes are possible this morning in eastern Georgia, the Carolinas, and southern Virginia after making landfall as a Category 4 hurricane Thursday night. Helene still had sustained winds of 70 miles an hour, and it has rolled through Georgia. More than 1 million people are without power. At least 3 victims have died. There's a task force from Colorado that is deployed to Tennessee to help the storm victims. The 45-member team is setting up in Chattanooga and includes firefighters, a doctor, and a canine handler. Kamala Khan scheduled to visit the southern border today for the first time since she was installed as the Democratic nominee for president. Former President Trump in New York City.
They come and they keep coming and coming, and nobody has ever seen anything like it. People that go to the border, they look professionals, and they said there's never been anything like this in the history of the world, and they are destroying the fabric of our country. She did nothing to stop any of it. In fact, she encouraged them to keep coming, and you know that for years she did. Only recently did she say, oh, well, we're going to try and put a stop to it.
And New York City Mayor Eric Adams ordered to appear in federal district court in Manhattan today. He was indicted Thursday and charged with accepting bribes from Turkish officials. Adams maintains he's innocent and vows to stay in office. This one's interesting to me. Dave Ramsey, financial coach, debt-free fighter, tries to remain neutral and put this on social media on Thursday.
Hey guys, well, our team reached out to both Vice President Harris's camp and President Donald Trump's camp about the opportunity to sit down and talk about ideas. Now, keep in mind, what happens in your house is more important than what happens in the White House. But I'm standing in Trump Tower, and I just finished interviewing President Donald Trump. It's a great interview. You're going to want to see it. We'll post it next week.
So he gave Harris an opportunity, and she never answered. That's not a shocker. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu in New York City today to address the UN General Assembly. His speech was delayed 4 days after Israel launched airstrikes against Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Superior Farms in Denver will pay the EPA $120,000 to settle an alleged violation of the Clean Air Act. They've also agreed to undertake a $250,000 project to upgrade its equipment to avoid future violations. The operation is facing an uncertain future due to a November ballot initiative that could ban slaughterhouses in Denver. A Colorado police officer is on the other side of the law. Daniel Huff arrested Wednesday night on incest charges and will make his first court appearance today. The CBI says they got a tip. He allegedly sexually assaulted a woman and spent 3 weeks investigating. The 41-year-old has since been placed on leave with the Gunnison Police Department and remains behind bars without bond. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. The Cowboys over the Giants, 20-15 last night. The win was the Cowboys' 7th in a row over the Giants, going back to 2021. CU Buffs go for their 3rd straight victory as they visit Central Florida tomorrow, but I'm sure the storms are going to affect that game a lot. The Buffs coming off a thrilling 38-31 overtime win over Baylor. Air Force at Wyoming. CSU is off, and Cal Poly is at UNC in Greeley tomorrow. 57 in Centennial, 55 in Golden, 59 in Denver. Pete, the legend, in for Jeff and Bill. TGIF, Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Blake's World. Morning, everybody.
To change much as we head through the weekend. Denver will enjoy sunny, warm, summer-like days, clear, cool nights, and mostly dry conditions through Sunday.
Friday was 87 the high, 57 tonight.
80s. Overnight low temperatures will be mostly in the 50s. We do expect a little bit of a cooling trend to arrive Monday and Tuesday, but still
Peter Boyles in for the fellows.
303-696-1921. BranchClaiming.com. Secure your retirement plans with a free review.
Wide open, of course, as we come into the show. Should prostitution, sex work, be legal or decriminalized? We're going back to a break. Shows you what I know. Let's go back to the break.
I just checked the weather in between my lives, and it looks like at 2 a.m. the water might start going down. But in the meantime, it's going up.
Everybody, let's do it. Friday morning, September the 27th, 2024. Peter Boyles in for the guys. Phone number 303-696-1971. These are, it's going to be difficult, and well, perhaps. You don't have to use your name. You can be X, Y, Z, or maybe you just want to say your first name, don't care. Have you ever in your life been to a legal or government okayed house of prostitution? Either in Nevada, Europe, any place in the world. The vice president wants to decriminalize, legalize, your choice of words, sex work. And what I think is really interesting about this is people have attempted, after she has said this for numbers of years, now they're trying to get her on the record, yes or no. And like so many things, like Blake was just talking about, dodging and ducking. But the last comment that people could find, at least according to my work yesterday, her last comment on whether she thinks sex work should be legal for consenting adults was in 2019, and she said yes, and that was in her failed run for the White House. She said, and I'll quote this to you. I think we have to understand, and it's not as simple as that. There's an ecosystem around that. It includes crimes and harm people. I think she's right. In those issues, I do not believe that anyone who hurts another human being or profits, here we go, politics of joy, free of criminal prosecution. And I agree with her. There's this system that's called the pimp system that's just brutal. And Harris is really arresting pimps. And then she was also, when she was the DA, arresting Johns rather than the prostitutes themselves. Now, so we're consenting adults. Well, so I want your thoughts on this. It's open line, so it's catch as catch can. But for consenting adults, how do you feel? Is prostitution a victimless crime? And the Veep made these remarks back in 2003 when she started her first campaign for the DA's job in San Francisco. And at the time, in San Francisco, as you know, is Baghdad by the Bay, but consensual sex between consenting adults should not be a subject of prosecution. And I got this from an Asian Week is where I found this. It's a now defunct publication that was serving the city of San Francisco's East Asian community. And Harris added at the time that she thought prostitution was entwined with violent crime. Probably. And victimization. I don't know who the victim is. unless it's that sex trafficking. And she also added she was committed to prosecuting sexual abusers and statutory rapists. Now that's totally different than legal prostitution. At the time, and I quote her, "I don't think there should be a blanket approach one way or another to the issue of prostitution." And she said, "We know in San Francisco we have an epidemic." And her choices of words are always very interesting. In 2008, and she came out against, and this is how she plays it. There was something called Proposition K. It was a ballot measure that would have decriminalized prostitution in San Francisco by, here we are again, watch this, forbidding police from using tax money to investigate prostitution. And that was bizarre. And she said it was completely ridiculous, just in case any aim. And again, this is, I think, how she operates. But Proposition K failed, by the way. And her policy agenda does not mention anything about prostitution now in 2024. Her campaign has refused, this is the point I wanted to get to, her campaign has refused to respond to several inquiries on her current position. So I turn to you. 303-696-1971 is our phone number. Lines are wide open. We're underway. What do you think? Have you ever had the experience? I'm not talking about, well, you can pick them and play them. I shouldn't say what we want to do, but how do you think this would work? We have tremendous prostitution in Denver. And if you don't think so, wait till the stock show comes to town. And it's big time. And there's always prostitution, workers, the internet. I talked to a friend of mine yesterday. He was talking about internet sex. You can just buy people on the internet. You can, whether they hook up on the internet. So are sex workers victims? I don't think so. I mean, if somebody's willingly a sex worker, not being forced into it, how can, I mean, and that's their job. But so when the vice president supports decriminalization of sex work, and it won't come to the surface, and I don't think it'll be asked, but would it make a difference in the outcome of the election? She has said in the past she supports decriminalization of sex work nationwide, by the way. This would be, as she's the POTUS, she would ask this to be done nationwide. Now, the bizarre part of that, it would take the House and the Senate. The House will probably be Democrats. The Senate will probably be Republicans. I don't know how far it goes. But noting, she was asked, and this is in an outfit called The Root. Harris was asked whether sex work ought to be decriminalized, though the interviewer did not specify at which level. I do, the vice president said. I think we have to understand, though, and goes on from there, that we're talking about consensual adults. And we should really consider that we can't criminalize consensual behavior. Well, let's see. All right, lines are lighting up. John's doing his job. We start with Robert on line one. Hey, Robert, good morning, man. Thanks for calling the show.
Good morning, brother, man. Been a long time.
Glad you called.
Okay, the first kind of snarky/humorous response is just the old adage that you're not paying a hooker for sex, you're paying her to leave.
That's right. Done. That's right.
You know, but there is some truth to that. And with regard to prostitution, when it is between two consenting adults, who cares?
No, I agree.
I mean, really, that's
absolutely agree.
Long and the short of it, who cares? If a woman is willing to, or a man for that matter, I mean, you know, there's gigolos out there, whatever. If they are willing to trade their, you know, sexual favors and the use of their body for whatever monetary reward, you know, or compensation rather, okay, that's their business. Obviously, there are, you know, when it comes to underage kids and stuff, you know,
no, that's not what we're talking. Yeah,
completely separate argument. Yeah. And I think although I'm a conservative guy, I think it's incredibly disingenuous
yes.
For the Republicans to be running ads on this. And the Democrats do the same thing. They take one snippet and give you no context whatsoever, and then harp on it and beat you over the head like it's a cudgel, trying to win an election, and that's politics. But again, the long and the short of it comes down to, look, if you're grown adult and free to make your own decisions,
the system.
Have at it.
Yeah. Have you ever been? This is a loaded question, but have you ever been in and I wrote this down, as a legal / government okayed house of prostitution?
No, I haven't. The one time that I was in Vegas, a city that I actually just detest, the guys that I was with was like, "Oh, we should go check out the brothel."
Right.
I'm like, "Why?" I personally don't understand the allure, but when you get right down to it, you're always paying
one way or the other. In the words of my, in the words of my sage Uncle Gene, one way or the other, kid. Yeah. Everybody pays.
Oh, sure.
But there used to be a woman that would come and do our radio show with us, and she was the madam of the Mustang Ranch. I went skiing with her. She was great. And then when my brother was in the Army and we went to Europe, in Germany, it's legal. And he walked me through, it was a warehouse. It was in Frankfurt, Germany. And I was telling somebody about this last night. The cops were on every floor. There were bars. And then each of these women had a cubicle, best described as a cubicle. And they were dressed like Vikings or, all kinds of different, whatever you were looking for.
Suiting whatever fantasy or niche you were looking to exploit. Yeah.
And they displayed their health certificate. Now, this is before AIDS, but they displayed government health certificates that they had been examined by physicians. And we walked 2 floors. I was just, wow, look at this. And then I've been to Amsterdam. I don't know if you've ever been to Amsterdam and walked down Canal Street. Women are sitting in the windows.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it and read articles and stuff about Amsterdam. Never been there personally. But as I understand it, it's very much the same thing. The government does their health checks and make sure that people aren't going to be spreading various social diseases, etc.
It was incredible.
But if you really go back to it, man, go back to post World War II, Japan, China, Philippines, anywhere in Asia, prostitution was rampant. Why? Because they were broke and they had no way to make a living. And you had these GIs with a pocket full of script.
You bet.
That were happily willing to trade that. I know my great uncle, who has many years passed on, was in the Korean War, and after the bug out from Busan, as they retreated back south, one of the units actually it's a rolling brothel. They had an ambulance.
Well, that's where hooker
into a rolling brothel.
Our term hookers comes from. I don't know if you ever read why we call them hookers. In the Civil War, there was a general by the name of, I think his name was Hooker or Hooker, and the prostitutes would follow his army, and they were then dubbed hookers. So no, all this stuff, and
I didn't know that. Yeah. That's a nifty little piece of trivia.
Yeah, and that's where. But even in the Second World War, prior to Normandy and everything, the British would say, they're overpaid, oversexed, and over here. And they're American GIs with, like you say, a pocket full of money, and God knows what's waiting for them. So when she says this, I'm no raging fan, but I thought, is that a smart thing or is it a dumb thing to say? And she won't, and this is pretty typical right now of her, but she won't answer questions about it. But in the past, and I thought about it, and I said, it's hardly a bad idea.
And I would tend to agree with you. I think we have to look at what is the time and the place, so the total context of when she made the initial statement. Not just what did she say, but when and where did she say it.
2003 is as early as I can find it. Yeah.
Okay. Different viewpoints, different politics, everything else. But also, where was she? She was in San Francisco, one of the biggest liberal bastions in the United States, where attitudes towards things like prostitution, along with a number of other things, are very different than they are in, say, Kearney, Nebraska.
Yeah. And,
or
could
Des
you,
Moines, Iowa, or whatever.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's,
and people, especially local politicians, say things all the time to pander to or appeal to the base of voters in the area that they're running. You know, I mean, there's a few of these local Denver politicians that are just radical socialists. Do you really think that they would even try to put that particular line?
Don't know.
You know, they're very advertising lines
that's
Colorado Springs as opposed to Denver.
Robert, that's great, because I don't know, or where would it be? There's these places that they call the hot zones, and they're set aside places. At least the ones that I've seen they're set asides, and people know they're there. You know, when they were doing John's TV and all that stuff, and Julie Hayden and I, they had busted this guy, this airman, and it was all stupid. And then, you know, we started to research it, and we put Hickenlooper on the spot, and he kind of weenied out and got mad at us. But they put these guys' faces on TV, and it was just at the same time the Players and Sugar was happening, and
that's a shaming campaign.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the other side of the coin. Is where do we draw the line for the government to legislate morality? Because that's really what it is. I don't think the government has any real interest in limiting or prosecuting prostitution, because they think it's just the worst thing ever for society, and people are being destroyed. They're trying to legislate morality, and it's the same thing that you had with gay marriage, where you know we don't want gay marriage because it'll destroy the family unit.
How?
Well, 50% of marriages end in divorce as it is.
I remember
you don't have a great success rate.
I remember saying at the time, I forget who it was. So if two gay guys can get married, your old lady's going to leave you. Come on, quit it.
One's got nothing to do with the other.
Nothing.
You know,
Nothing.
You know, my dad he's from New York. He used to say, "This ain't that." You know.
We're rolling.
So,
all right.
Hey, Steve, you have a great day.
Great first call. We have one line open. That line dropped off. Good morning. It's Friday. I'm Peter Boyles in for the guys. The 11th annual MC1 Honor Run goes Sunday, the Sunday from Columbine High School. Doors open at 8. We'll talk with Frank and Mark Miller. We're going to go to Lebanon at 7 to Father Mahana. Beautiful day, 87 the high. We have one line open, 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Kamala Harris making her first trip to the U.S.-Mexico border since becoming the border czar back in 2021. She'll be stopping in the Tucson, Arizona sector. And even though the illegal migrant crisis is impacting people across the nation, Harris continues to claim the administration has been successful on border policy.
According to recently released data by the CBP, a pair of Border Patrol sectors here in South Texas have seen a slight increase in illegal migrant crossings in the month of August at 13,000. However, that number is much lower than back in December, when it was 90,000 illegal crossings. And that's thanks to Governor Greg Abbott and Operation Lone Star.
Illegal migration has been at record highs since the start of the Biden-Harris administration, at one point reaching more than 235,000 illegal crossings in a single month. That's when Governor Greg Abbott stepped in and created Operation Lone Star, resulting in an 85% decrease in illegal migrant crossings in the state. While the number of illegal migrant crossings in Texas is drastically lower, the numbers in Arizona and California, according to Abbott, have increased, pointing to the success coming from his operation and not Harris.
Since the start of the Biden-Harris administration, according to CBP, more than 9 million illegal migrants have crossed the southern border, and that's not including the 2 million gotaways. However, most experts say that number of illegal migrant crossings is closer to 20 million.
In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
Morning, everybody. It's Friday, September the 27th, 2024. 710 KNUS. Peter Boyle's in for the fellas, and we're talking about legalization of sex work. And we go to Jay. Hey, man, your show. Good morning. Thank you. Jay.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I had to take you off speakerphone. I couldn't listen to the commercial so much. Hey, I got to ask you, they say prostitution is one of the oldest professions.
Farming. and then
well, I'm a farmer, but then I've heard that before. It even goes back to biblical times of prostitution.
Sure. And
I got to tell you something. I left the farm one time. This is in '97. I left the farm. I'd never been in Denver when I went to be an industrial designer. So when I went to school at the Art Institute in Denver, and I lived there, well, I was curious about the big city. So I would go walk Colfax, and there was back then. That's in '97.
Sure, of course.
And I would walk Colfax, and those girls, there would be girls offering stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my girlfriend with me, mind you, but there were still people or gals, you know, just in that deal. And it was, you can imagine me leaving the farm and then witnessing it firsthand.
Yeah.
At a young age. I was only 23 years old.
But the point of this is, should it be legal?
Okay, so what is it? Should it be legal? I say yes. It should be legal. They got the bunny ranches in Nevada. Should it be legal? Yes. Should it be legal? Should it be illegal for me to go be a construction worker and lose my hand and take a chance?
No, it's totally different. You're doing apples and watermelons.
Okay, but in a sense, to where if somebody's willing to take a chance of any nature of their own body, that is their own self-liability.
Well, you would have to get hired on a construction site with no ability to work, and I don't think that's going to happen. The question is, should prostitution, sex work be legal? Vice President says yes, and we're looking for people who have been into one of these places and live to talk about it. So I appreciate your call. Thank you. Let's go to Mike. Mike, you're on a radio show, man. Happy Friday.
Hi, Pete.
Hey, man.
You know, I agree. Yes, legal, because I'm a retired Denver cop, and I can tell you the illegal side of it is brutal, and it's nasty.
Oh.
And you're talking victims on the illegal side.
Yes, I agree.
So, you know, legal, because you summed it up very well. Amsterdam, the Bunny Ranch. I mean,
you ever seen, legitimately, you ever walked in one of those places or seen one or gone to one?
I've never.
Okay.
I've heard guys. You know, I've talked to cops that I know there. You know, in Pahrump and different places.
Yep.
I've talked to guys that went to the Bunny Ranch. The girls are well paid.
Yep.
The security's tight.
Yep.
They're not victims.
Nope.
You know, they're there legally. It's a legitimate business. You know, I was well involved. You know, obviously I had friends on the Vice Squad. You know, I saw the list at Denver Player, Denver Sugar. I saw who was on that list. I know why it wasn't.
Someday we should meet, because I've never seen the list, and I know that the cops have it
formally. But but I know who was on that list.
Yeah.
But you know, and I know why it was never.
Yep.
Made public.
But
you know,
if I could sidebar you, because that was the moment that this guy was an airman out of Buckley, and he was like an E5 or something, and he, whether he did it or he didn't do it, he's a married guy. Friday night, you know, too many beers, and they're called bait cops, I think. Isn't that what the term is? That they put a policewoman out posing as a prostitute. Well, this guy decides he's going to pick her up, and they bust him. They turn him into a CO. He gets reduced in rank. They tell his old lady. It was awful. And he said to me, and he said to Julie Hayden, he said, I didn't do it. Now, whether he did it or not. And so he had a fine to pay because they impounded his truck. And Julie and I went out and we put Hickenlooper on the spot because the whole Players and Sugar thing was coming apart. And you and I both know that, I mean, I can only guess, and you actually have knowledge of who was on that list. Hey, let me throw you on hold. Can I keep you on hold and come back? I got to take a turnaround. Can you stay with me, Mike?
Sure.
All right, hang on. Right back after this on 710 KNUS. Fine morning, everybody. We're 2 minutes up until the 7 o'clock. We'll attempt to go to Lebanon, speak with Father Andre. This is Mike, former Denver police officer. We're under 2 minutes. I'll turn it over to you. The question is, should sex work, prostitution be legalized as the vice president apparently wants it to be? Mike, I'll give it to you up until the wall. Go ahead.
Well, I just think, Peter, we've been through this discussion. We love the era. You saw when you legalized booze, you took care of it with, you took care of Capone and Prohibition. When you legalize prostitution, the other caller said it perfectly, as did you. Sometimes, I don't mean to be crude this early in the morning, you go to these places and maybe you get something that you can't get at home.
There you go.
Guys have needs and they're going to get them met. But if you take care of the women, this is about women. And, you care about these sex workers, okay? You want them healthy, you want them clean, you want them protected. You need security because some of these people are freaks. And I care about these ladies because, I saw these girls. I worked with them. My area was West Colfax that I worked for 10 years.
Michael, I hate to do this to you. I got music rolling up. We will see each other. Thank you. On the other side, we're going to try to go to Beirut, Father Andre. Later in the morning, Mark Miller, Frank DeAngelis on MC1, and I'm going to go give John Vandermeer a call. It's a Friday morning. Peter Boyle's in for the fellows, and tomorrow, Scientology on the Saturday morning show. Stay right here.
What if this sound actually made you smile, giving you a chance to win gas and groceries for a year? It's the $13,000 gas and grocery giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gas and grocery gift cards. 2 first prize winners get $1,000 in gift cards. And 2 second prize winners get $500 in gift cards.
Presented by Branch Planning. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. The $13,000 gas and groceries giveaway. Enter today at 710knus.com.
Morning, everybody. It's going to get tight right now. It's Friday morning, the 27th of September, 2024. I'm Peter Wells. For the fellows, we have Father Andre on hold from Beirut. We have a lot happening. John Vandermeer will be with us at 9 o'clock. Mark and Frank DeAngelis on the MC1 honor run. But let's do this. Blake's World. Let's go to the newsroom, get this out of the way, and then go to Beirut. Blake, it's yours.
All right. Thanks, Pete. 59 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 85 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I just checked the weather in between my lives, and it looks like at 2 a.m. the water might start going down. But in the meantime, it's going up.
That's a man in Florida in his kayak going live on TikTok inside his house, about 4 feet of water. Helene is now a tropical storm, still has a maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour as it rolls across southern Georgia and causing heavy rains and life-threatening storm surge. The National Hurricane Center says a flash flood emergency is in effect for the metro Atlanta area this morning. At least 6 people have died. The storm should weaken as it moves further inland, though damaging winds are still expected in parts of the southeast. The CU Buffs left on Wednesday to beat the storm as they'll play in Orlando tomorrow against Central Florida, which is not in the direct path of the storm. About 2 million customers are without power, the majority of those in Florida. Kamala Khan will be in Arizona today for a trip to the southern border. The borders are, that's who she is, will be southeast of Tucson and will visit the U.S. Customs port of entry and get official briefings on the disrupting flow of fentanyl through the border. About 4 years late, you would think, or you could say, here's Mark Cuban with a Cuban BS sandwich.
But I don't think you can have an open southern border.
No, I agree. And she agrees, too. She said the exact same thing.
She had a chance.
Yeah, but Joe, you know there's a lot of COOs that when the CEO leaves for whatever reason, come in, take over, and have completely different policies and approaches, right? That's just the way it works. When you're second in command, you do what your boss tells you to do.
Okay, so it was Biden's fault. She didn't have anything to do with it. Former President Trump in New York City Thursday.
They come and they keep coming, and nobody has ever seen anything like it. People that go to the border, they look professionals, and they said there's never been anything like this in the history of the world, and they are destroying the fabric of our country. She did nothing to stop any of it. In fact, she encouraged them to keep coming, and you know that. For years she did. Only recently did she say, oh, well, we're going to try and put a stop to it.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu in New York City today to address the UN General Assembly. His speech was delayed 4 days after Israel launched airstrikes against Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. And Pete has more on this coming up in just a few seconds. Father Andre is coming up. The CU Buffs once again at Central Florida tomorrow. The Buffs coming off a thrilling 38-31 overtime over Baylor. Air Force at Wyoming. CSU is off. Cal Poly at UNC. The Cowboys over the Giants last night, 20-15. 55 in Louisville. 57 in Lakewood. 59 in Denver. Pete the Great in for Jeff and Billy, TGIF, Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Don't expect the weather to change much as we head through the weekend. Denver will enjoy sunny, warm, summer-like days, clear, cool nights, and mostly dry conditions through Sunday. Temperature readings will be well into the 80s. Overnight low temperatures will be mostly in the 50s. We do expect a little bit of a cooling trend to arrive Monday and Tuesday, but still dry. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your retirement plans with a free review to help provide asset protection, long-term care, or even income for life. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Morning, everybody, on a Friday, 27th of September. Peter Boyle's on the air everywhere the fellows are off. I'm here also tomorrow morning, and we will look at Scientology tomorrow. In the meantime, Israel is preparing for a possible ground operation in Lebanon. Army chief said on Wednesday, Hezbollah firing rockets across the border aimed at Tel Aviv, which is the deepest strike yet. U.S. and a lot of other countries are calling for immediate 21-day ceasefire, and no one is paying attention. Without further ado, he's one of my dearest friends. We've traveled in the Middle East together. I went with him to home to Lebanon. Father, good morning, and I guess we say good afternoon as well, and welcome to your home radio station. Thanks for being here. Good morning.
Thank you, Peter. I miss you. I miss my radio home station. I miss actually all Denver between you and me. It has been adventurous in this part of the world.
Where are we speaking to you from?
Well, I am in a national shrine of Our Lady Queen of Peace. I had to leave Lebanon a little bit because things got a little bit threatening, a little bit dangerous, specifically for the line of work that I do. So I am transitioned into Europe at this point to be able to assist, run campaigns so we can assist people who are internally displaced and have better access to internet, to movement, and to network. So we can tell people how to help us providing food, mattresses, medication, covers, pillows, blankets, things that really 90,000 displaced people at this point in Jbeil and Kisrawen alone. 90,000.
Wow. When people ask who's to blame, there's always somebody to blame. And at the end of something like this, the winner gets to blame the loser, but that doesn't necessarily always prove to be the truth. So this now is Hezbollah, this is Israelis, this is Hamas, this is Iranians, this is, I mean, name it and claim it. Would you take a second historically and tell this story of how we got here?
Well, historically, it's good. Your question is right on. It makes people simply understand. We are to blame Sykes-Picot, which is the very first map that was done for the Middle East immediately after the fall of the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East. And when the Allies went to France and they divided the blue line and red line, and they kept a little dot and a secret accord called for Israel. So the re-inclusion, if you may say, in one map for the Middle East, for the Jews, for the Christians, and for the Muslims, Sunnis and Shias. Then came the oil land and the petrodollar in 1929, and after that, in the years that follow. All of this created the situation in which we have been now. Since 1948 until today, there have been many trials, many periods of major wars between the Arab world and Israel. Also, since 1974 till today, there have been also trials of making a peace, such as between Egypt and Israel, between some countries under President Trump as well, the Abrahamic Accord. So I think there have been some essays, if you may call them, initiatives to save Sykes-Picot or to reintroduce a new map. Under George Bush, you had Condoleezza Rice going to the Middle East, and she spoke about the Arab Spring. She spoke about probably new democracy, new freedoms, and so forth. Then you had under Barack Obama confessional struggles and persecution, major waves of persecution, the establishment of Daesh in Iraq that started. All of these things came to the point where we are today. After President Trump left office, we think in the Middle East there has been some sort of an economic marriage between, let's say, the Sunni world and Israel, between Iran and Israel. But there is this one phenomenon, Peter, that kept going on, and that is the augmentation and the arming of Hezbollah since 1982 until today, but namely between 2006, so after the first war, which you and me and Sam, when we went to Lebanon, we have seen it in 2014. We were always asked by the people, are the United States people aware that Hezbollah is getting more weapons? You know, they're rising from 10,000 people to 100,000 people. They're rising from 6,000 missiles to 150,000 missiles. Then we hear 200,000 missiles. Are they aware in the U.S. of such a happening? Then I believe in 2019, when the Lebanese banking system was hit very hard and economic sanctions on Syria were imposed, and it kind of like spilled over to Lebanon. The individuals in Lebanon, the economy lost its strength, lost everything. The Lebanese people lost everything. There was no way then for the Lebanese people to stand against any form of terrorism. And then October 7 happens. Lebanon has been unfortunately put in a mandate where Iranian proxy powers have been in charge, mostly of foreign defensive strategies to be clear. And of course, we were always living at the verge, either do we have a civil war inside the country, or do we just keep our mouth and somehow in silence until somebody in the world makes something else? Unfortunately, the bad surprise, the massacres against the Jewish people on October 7 happened. And I think at that point there has been an ugly divorce of all accords, including of the map of Sykes-Picot. And now we are living what I may call it between you and me in a Samson option. I think Israel has taken a Samson option. I think Hezbollah has taken a Samson option, but they are still trying to save what they can save from that marriage. And I'm not sure it is going to work. As you said earlier on, immediately when you called me, I think there are preparations for ground operations of some sort, unfortunately.
From my reading, the past couple of hours, there's been Israeli airstrikes, and Hezbollah has launched another rocket barrage, and the picture today reflects more escalation and more violence. And the main issue now is ground invasion. And and again, there was another significant part of this, and you were a boy when this happened. When the PLO invaded Lebanon, the Israelis chased them in, and then the Syrian army invaded. And out of that witch's brew, that cauldron, comes Hezbollah. Hezbollah is, what are the roots of Hezbollah to make it as powerful as it is today?
Well, the roots of Hezbollah, I think, come from within a bigger strategy for the new world Middle East. For a new world, I do not want to call it a new world order in the Middle East, but I think there is a need to establish a new Middle East based on economic understandings and based on certain policies. In these policies, the group of Hezbollah may not fit or may be necessary to blow the Middle East in a confessional war that is unheard of. There is an area I did not want to talk about. That is, how is it possible that Hezbollah, being a Shia group following Iran, which is not an Arab country, involved the Arab world, the Shias of the Arab world, in such a horrible massacres? In 1 week alone now in Lebanon, 2,000 people almost are dead. In 1 week. Yes. In 1 week. Can you understand that? It's unheard of, really. And people still under rubble inside, areas in the south, inside areas in the Bekaa Valley. So there is this sensitive area in the growth of Hezbollah. It's such a foreign entity, uniquely powerful, with two Sunni powers in the Middle East. One is the Palestinian territory of Hamas. It's strange, right, for a Shia group to militantly be supportive of the Sunnis inside Palestine, whereas their involvement inside Syria in a war between Bashar Assad and the revolution that happened since 2010 almost against his people, Hezbollah is co-responsible for the destruction of many Sunni towns. If you see the videos of the massacres that they say, and again, I'm not a politician, but you ask me a question based on facts and based on history. There are so many videos online showing the involvement of that group in the murder of many Sunnis, children, women, men, in an unbelievable way inside Syria. I am afraid that there is a hidden purpose for Hezbollah, and that has to do with blowing a war between the Shias and the Sunnis. And we as Christians in the Middle East, the Christians in Lebanon, are doing our best to make sure such war does not take place and does not happen. So I think if you still see them strong and you are asking what is the secret of their strength, I am afraid there could be this type of a power that might blow up the Middle East in a confessional war that would end up actually reaching the Sunni world beyond Lebanon into the Gulf countries. I am afraid of that.
Our guest is Father Andre Mahana, born, raised in Lebanon, been such a guide for me in the last 15 years of my life, and recently has left Lebanon. When Sunnis and Shia have fought one another since the death of Muhammad, and I'm really thinking about what you just said, because principally isn't Hezbollah a Sunni group sponsored by Shia?
It's a strange, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a Shia Arab group sponsored by Iran, which is historically the nation where there is a supremacy. You know how we in America speak about white supremacy?
Yes.
Between the Arab race and the Persian race, there is a supremacy issue. It's called al-Shu'ubiyya. It's called al-Shu'ubiyya. One is superior to the other. That is the Persian race being superior to the Arab race. And all of a sudden, the investment of Iran inside the Middle East starts, the war in 1986, I believe, which caused about 1 million people dead in Iraq. The first war between Saddam Hussein and Iran.
Iran-Iraq.
And then the Iran and Iraq war. And after that, with Al-Qaeda and with ISIS and with our war, unfortunately, with George Bush Jr. war against Saddam Hussein, the Shias went inside Iraq and they massacred hundreds of thousands of Sunnis. Then with Daesh or ISIS, under Barack Obama, they went to Syria and they obliterated many Sunni towns and they caused the death of over 2 million people inside Syria, mostly Sunnis. Christians, of course, their numbers do not have them. They're always the collateral damage, and any death against Christian is an extinction. Like you extinct those people. Unfortunately, that's why our mission of Hope and Mercy states, with your help and John and Katie and everybody, we needed to support the survival of the Christians in the Middle East because they're the only peacemakers who can make sense of talking to Sunnis, talking to Shias to stop. So there have been dramatic massacres, silent massacres between the Sunnis and the Shias happening since the Muslim Iranian revolution of Khomeini in 1979, Peter. Are you aware of that? Have you ever looked at it in that angle?
No, but I'm sitting here thinking as you're speaking, and yes, the answer is this is a swerve in my thinking, because what George Bush and Dick Cheney did in the Middle East will never be rectified, even in my grandson's lifetime. What those two men did when they got rid of Saddam, who was the bumper, he was the stalwart that stood between the Arab world and the non-Arab world, i.e., the Iranians. They proclaim, and I've talked with them, that they're Aryans. They're not Semites. And what Bush and Cheney were able to do, and you mentioned the word Arab Spring, that people I read say that turned into Arab Winter. That was Arab Winter. It wasn't Arab Spring.
That's true.
And that what happened inside of Syria and what happened inside of Iraq was just murder. And how much, when John Kerry goes to meet the mullahs had him at hello. When he walked into those rooms, the mullahs had him. And the rise of power. Now, is it the Saudi Arabians or the Saudis that balance? Because the Saudis have now proclaimed themselves back as anti-Israelis. And at one time under Donald Trump, they were going to try and make a deal. That's out the window right now. How does it, Father, how does this?
I'm not sure it's out of the window yet, but I know that probably Saudi Arabia's silence for the most part is their way to wait for a new president in the United States to see.
Yes.
Does that mean if one side wins, which is the current side, let's say, that means that's Abrahamic Accord. Yes,
I agree.
So go ahead.
Well, when
if a new president comes from Trump, let's say, if Trump becomes the president again, I think the Saudis will have hope that they can rejuvenate, reawaken those treaties, and a new security system or order will have to be happening in the Middle East.
Who can stop this? I mean, I'm reading that he's at the UN. Netanyahu's at the UN, or trying to. U.S. and France and some other allies have jointly called for this immediate 21-day ceasefire in the conflict. That more than 600 people have died in Lebanon, and they want to provide space for diplomacy. I don't even know what that means. It's not going to end like that, is it?
No, you might think I am crazy, but you've known me, and you've known probably 90% of the time of what I say, unfortunately, ends up happening.
Yes.
As a warning, I say, the war in the Middle East will not stop. It's depending, it's contingent on the war in Russia and Ukraine.
Yes. No, I agree.
Contingent on the war between Russia and Ukraine. It will not stop, unfortunately. And it is that war, if it's contingent on our war with the Eastern Sea, with China, then I believe President Trump was right all along when he said, we are entering in a third world war, and we have the duty as Americans to make sure we don't enter into such horrific times. I think they are contingent on one another, these wars, Peter, and somehow.
I know they're very much intrinsically linked in the military-industrial complex in this country. I was reading yesterday, the Biden administration is sending white phosphorus rounds to the Ukrainians, and the Biden administration, I don't think it's Joe, but the Biden administration sending more American GIs. And that's the tripwire. That's Vietnam. You know, you have something happens and something happens and something happens. It's World War I. It's what Barbara Tuchman called the tripwire. And somebody's going to step on something, and there's no coming back from that. And it's a very scary moment.
What's sad is, according to what I am seeing, observing facts in the Middle East and speaking to very highly ranked, influential people from all sides of the equation, and in the United States, as you know, unfortunately, you have the leaders of the current powerful institutions in the world. I think they are aiming to hurt at least one of the candidates in the United States. I think they are counting on one of the candidates being out one way or the other. And I'm sad to say that. I do not say it, I do not take it slightly. I think, honestly, the candidate, or Mr. Trump in this case, needs to be very, very, very extremely careful for his safety. I do not know why I'm seeing in the world rounds and rounds and rounds of those powers are betting on this man not being around in November, and somehow it's scary to see that, and it's sad to see that probably his campaign, I don't know if they really take this seriously, honestly, between you and me.
Final question: is Hezbollah able to stop an invasion by the Israelis into Lebanon?
No, but what they unfortunately can cause is a major confessional war, a collateral war inside Lebanon. I'm not afraid of the Shias or the Hezbollah not being able to respond to stop the ground invasion from Israel against the south of Lebanon, which will go in about 30 kilometers only and will stop. I am afraid that there will be a pretext, and I warn our U.S. citizens about that. Please help us stop that. That the Syrian refugees, who are 2 million Syrian refugees inside Lebanon,
I saw that.
About 80% of them are under the age of 40, and they are the actively people who were hurt by Hezbollah. This is what they say inside Syria. When they were inside Syria, they will do a revenge against the Shia people in Lebanon. I am afraid of that part. That is the silent monster I am afraid of. That silent monster might kill the Christians and might say, I'm going to declare jihad against the Shia now that they are weak, claiming that all of them are Hezbollah. We need peace, Peter. I believe, Our Lady, we need to consecrate the United States to Our Lady, to the Immaculate Heart. I mean it. I'm sorry, I have to add my religious sense to it. I remember you look at Our Lady of Lebanon when we were walking in June after they had told us where Yasser Arafat was. I'm sorry to tell this story on the air, but it's a true story. You looked at the shrine of Our Lady of Lebanon, Harissa, up to the mountain, if you remember, and you said, Father, seriously, all these people think they are safe because of that statue of Our Lady?
Yeah.
Remember what I told you? I told you, yes, Peter. Then you told me, this makes me feel like the people in Paris in 1938,
yes,
having their croissant and having their beautiful morning cafe at the French Champs-Élysées.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the Pyrenees, they do not know that the monster is about to come down on them, referring to Adolphe. Do you remember that story that you told me?
All the time. And I remember that night where I went to church with you and you conducted mass, and then all those young people, we went to dinner with them. And I remember talking to they're deeply religious, they're deeply Christian young men and women. And I said, what's going to protect you? And that they said the same thing. Our Lady will protect Lebanon. And I thought to myself that they're the Parisians in 1938. They're over on the other side. They're certainly not thinking like you're thinking. Like they're not thinking like he's thinking. And so I watch this stuff. I watch Al Jazeera. I read Al Jazeera. I read Lebanese media in English. And if the Israeli,
and I tell you now, if the United States of America will not be consecrated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and to the Immaculate Heart of the Virgin Mary, I am afraid that this monster that we are afraid now will swallow millions of people, probably in Lebanon and the Middle East. I am afraid this monster is preparing something very ugly for our United States of America. We need to be on the highest level of virtue, good ethics, love of God, love of our neighbor, good conduct as American people. We need to be informed, and we need to really fear God before it's too late. I am afraid of very bad surprises for us in America. Remember, they're trying to break us in America. The reason why all these wars are happening is to break the United States of America, to take us to a part. They want us to invest in probably more missiles, probably selling weapons, hurting, probably population control, hurting people. And it seems that there are enough people in the United States until today who are saying, no, I just want to be a God-fearing man. And I want to live in tranquility, in peace internally, and I want to do better in this. I don't think this is an option that is at the table the way this election is being happening. I think they're trying to do something that the U.S. will have to do a decision. Most likely not good. I'm afraid for that.
Final question. How does the Israeli Gaza Palestinian, how does that end? Because could one end without the other? Could the Lebanese, could that part end before Gaza ends, or they're so intrinsically tied together? And how does, I was thinking this one too, Father, all these 6 and 7 and 8-year-old boys living in either a West Bank or Gaza, what are they going to be in 10 years?
They're going to be heroes of the ideology.
Thank you.
But you're saying naturally, this ideology is not going to die. You're right.
They're not buying anything when they know that all of their family was killed and the rest of this insanity and all the 6 and 7-year-old Israeli kids who lost their uncles and aunts and brothers and sisters. It's doomed. I mean, there's a line. It's either you, Trevor Roper, or A.J.P. Taylor, or one of the great historians said, there are parts of the world that there is no tomorrow. It is simply yesterday repeating itself.
Yeah, that's true. And not only repeating itself, remember,
getting worse.
In this war, remember, it is getting worse. It is going to get worse against the kind of life we have in the United States. I think the new economic form or order in the world cannot tolerate a free American individual income. It won't tolerate private capitalism anymore. It can't tolerate freedom of speech. Can't tolerate freedom of religion. Trust me, Peter, all these things matter.
Well, no, I agree. We're seeing it. We're watching it. Well, watching it happen, and I have no. I mean, I've traveled with you quite a bit and read a lot and listened to a lot of people speak. I remember you and I were in the camps, and I remember when I went up into the edge of the Bacad, I went up with friends of yours who took me up there, and I thought, and you can go, you could hear the armor, and you could hear the Syrian armor, and you could hear and it's held together now by chewing gum. I think it can come apart that quick.
So solution number two, you asked me this question, what will they do in 10 years, those children?
Yeah,
of course, they will be the heroes of indoctrination.
Absolutely.
But I tell you, the antidote is to strengthen the Christians in the Middle East. Their institutions will teach freedom. Their institutions will teach modernism, will teach coexistence, will teach pluralism. They will teach pardon. They will teach people how to excel in doing beautiful things for the Middle East. I think Christians are heralds of progress and of the great things in the Middle East. And I think we have an interest for us in America, if we want a peace in the Middle East, and if we want to stop terrorism, to make sure we have a powerful Christianity. This is why the mission of Hope and Mercy was investing in helping those people to make sure that we have a peacemakers in the future when the world needs them. And the last thing I want to tell you, to answer also your question, remember that the acts of terrorism are in the hands probably of the people you see being hurt and injured, or an indoctrination or the ideologies of some sort of a religious terrorism.
Sure.
Do you know who has the buttons in their hands? And do you know who has the list of the networks? They know every name. Probably they were in their jail at one point.
Yep.
Probably they were in their custody at some point. Probably they were under surveillance. They have technological, I would say, advancement. I think Israel has a big responsibility to stop also entertaining that. On the other hand, those little, you may call them symptoms of the people who are, Islam even does not want them. Muslims do not want terrorists amongst them, honestly. But why is somebody always in the West, like you mentioned Dick Cheney, so I can mention his name. Why would he go to Damascus or to wherever in Iraq and take photos and sit with al-Baghdadi, for instance?
Yes.
Why? You know, those things have to stop. Same thing with Taliban in Afghanistan. But, I mean, look what we did. So that symptom has
absolutely. I mean, and I run out of time, but Lenin said the purpose of terror is terror. That the people that are dead from a terrorism attack, they're gone. It's the people who survived or the people who see it. The purpose of terror is terror. And terror is such a part of this. Father, I am way past time. I will call you in the middle of the week and we'll talk, okay?
Thank you.
I miss you, please.
Please. I miss you too.
Father Andre Mahana.
If you may.
Yeah.
If you may, please let your people know we need help in the mission of Hope and Mercy. We need to provide food. We need to provide mattresses. If they simply can assist us by going on our website, missionofhopeandmercy.org, I would greatly appreciate it.
Take care of yourself, sir. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
You too. Back to open lines, 303-696-1971. Apologize, we're way behind. I'm Peter Boyles. Good morning. Coming up, Mark Miller and Frank DeAngelis about MC1, and then John Bandemir will be with us. They're auctioning off Bandemir. I talked to John. John said it's a garage sale. Back after this.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Joe Biden signed a temporary government spending bill that keeps agencies operating into December after Congress punted key spending decisions until after the November election. The bill generally funds agencies at current levels through December 20th, setting up the possibility of a government shutdown fight just before the holiday season. Lawmakers did agree to add $231 million to beef up the Secret Service after 2 assassination attempts against President Donald Trump.
Money was also added to help with the presidential transition. The measure easily passed Congress earlier in the week on a bipartisan basis, 341 to 82 in the House and 78 to 18 in the Senate, with Republicans accounting for all the no votes in both chambers. House Speaker Mike Johnson saying the measure is doing only what's absolutely necessary, a statement directed at members of his own conference concerned about spending levels. Johnson said the only alternative to the continuing resolution at this stage would have been a government shutdown. Judges on a New York appeals court appeared to be open-minded to the possibility of reducing or eliminating the $454 million civil fraud judgment in New York against President Trump. Trump appealed the ruling, with his attorneys calling Judge Arthur Engoron's ruling draconian, unlawful, and unconstitutional. Judge Peter Moulton questioned if James's lawsuit turned into, quote, something it was not meant to do.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
Morning again, everybody. Peter Boyle's in for the fellas. It's Friday, the 27th morning of September 2024. Good old 710 Jane, US 87 the high today, 88 Saturday, and Sunday, that's MC1, the 11th time we've done MC1. 90 degrees will be the high. Mark Miller and Frank DeAngelis coming up, but the MC1 Honor Run, the 11th time we've done this, and this year riding to support Ryan Applegate, who's a South Adams County Fire Department. He's on Thursday, the 7th of December, 23, 2 South Adams County firefighters and 2 Commerce City police officers were struck by a drunk driver on Interstate 76 in Commerce City. The fire truck was blocking 2 lanes of traffic, the DUI crash investigators, and Ryan Applegate was critically injured, both legs, his ribs, his jaw, and he's married, has a 2-year-old child. And every year, the committee selects a fallen officer or a first responder. And so we'll be at Columbine High School at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. We'll let the fellas talk about that in a little bit. And then John Vandermeer. This is an auction. I talked to John a moment ago, and he said it's a garage sale. And as you know, the track is now closing down. And so we'll have John with us at 9 o'clock. I'm a big fan. We opened the show talking about whether or not prostitution, sex work be legal. And the vice president says that she will do that. I'm talking to people about legal government okayed houses of prostitution and sex workers. And here's one for you. I came up with this. Let's see. Will Diddy become the October surprise? Will Puffy become the October surprise? All right, so we go to Tyler on line 1. Tyler, you waited. Thanks. Good morning. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, sir. How are we doing today?
I'm good, man. Thank you.
Good to hear you, man. That last interview you had there was horrifying.
Yes.
And I think that we all feel this oven heat looming over top of us. If you're paying attention at all right now, I just cutting through the hot knife of the world stage. This election right now is fascinating to see how a woman like Kamala Harris can be even considered for this position of what is about to come. And I have a lot of issues with Donald Trump. But I think that, there is value in a drunk at a party who stumbles through the crowd and pulls the tablecloth off the table and exposes the bomb that's about to go off underneath it. And I don't understand how we are actually considering a candidate that is basically a deer in headlights, and if what could be of how this place would unfold should she be installed. If Donald Trump does not contain the life to get through this thing, is on the other terrifying scenario. And I'm baffled how people can't see this right in front of us.
Donald Trump angered so many people. And had he not pulled all the stunts that he had pulled on stolen election and the rest of the nonsense, had he just been sort of the lion in winter and maybe the government in exile, kind of a place, but he's unable to do that. And you can read all of this voter behavior, and going back to when Donald Trump defeats Hillary Clinton, it's because people really did not like Hillary Clinton. And one of the conclusions of voting is that people more than likely vote against someone than they do vote for someone. So I've turned to reading the money line, which I think is probably far more accurate than reading a poll. And the money line has her. And she's and you want to say to Donald Trump, just be quiet. Stick to the issues. And
that's the catch-22 of him, is that he is that razor's edge that is just enough to make somebody nervous. And I think on the world stage, the only thing that I can see that we have got to come together on is that man has that capacity to shut a lot of this down, and she does not.
I came up with this scenario, and I used it on the Saturday show. So we're in your home, and everything in your house, the toilet's backed up, the dishwasher's overflowing, the washing machine's overflowing, the pipes have broken, the sewers have backed up. Now, sitting on the couch next to you is probably the best plumber in Colorado. However, if you go in the other room, he's going to hit on your wife, he's going to hit on your daughter, he's going to rob.
Right.
You know, but this guy's got 6 guys out there in the truck covered in mud, and they can fix it. They can. Now, do you wait for the politically correct plumber to get there who probably can't who can't hit himself in the ass with both hands at the same time?
Right.
Or do you get this guy and hire him to fix, and he'll fix them? But coming with him are all of these extra layers or fabric or whatever it is to make this weave up. And I think that's where I am right now. Is
I know it.
You know,
I don't know how to get other people to see that. You know, we are such in a bubble in this country. We're worried about sterilizing our men and cutting breasts off our children.
I know
that we are that the beast is on that horizon right now, and we can't see that forest for all these trees in front of us.
I mean, when
we're walking around with the same people that are doing this, you know?
Yeah, when eating cats and dogs, which like, and I'm thinking, I yelled at the television. I've been yelled at the TV in decades.
It's infuriating. I mean, that's exactly the point of this. But I think he's just got this autistic thing about him that he can't not say stuff, and whatever that is, whatever. You know, I think he's a different person than he once was, and I think he's got a better line on how things could happen here. And I think it's the best roll of the dice right now. I think if Kamala does this, then we are going to see a shutdown of the American society.
Something will. There's a line from Joseph Heller. Something happened, and I was talking to a really good friend of mine. We're talking about what history says, and history is a great teacher because everything that we're talking about right now has happened before. In another place, in another time, perhaps other countries, other men, other women, but it's happened before. And the outcome is never good. It just isn't. Yeah. And that's the scary part is there is no, at this point in time, there doesn't seem to be a good outcome. And
well, I think the best outcome is the one that does not send our boys and girls to war.
He's sending white phosphorus into the Ukraine to shoot it. They're shooting them down Vladimir Putin's throat, and I'm thinking,
right?
You're white phosphorus, and he's putting more American soldiers in the Middle East. My God, look what has happened before when we did that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can't believe that people don't see that this is the number one thing to be voting on.
Yeah. Thank you. Very good,
Thank
man.
you,
All right. 303-696-1971. We turn around right back after this. Morning, everybody. It's a Friday. Peter Boyle's in for the fellas. They're back Monday. I get to work again tomorrow, and the highlight of tomorrow, Scientology, A to Xenu, the insider's guide to what Scientology is really all about. Chris Sheldon, who I know, and this book came out a while back, but it is, if you've been interested in this and what they believe, and, you know, Ron Hubbard and Xenu, and they rip families apart, and you've probably heard all the stories, but what is it that they believe? What's the heart and soul? And I'm currently reading a couple of different books, but one I'm reading is entitled Follow the Plan, about QAnon. And I decided that QAnon is not as crazy as Scientology, but it's a close race. 87 the high, 88 Saturday, Sunday. For the MC1 Honor Run will be 90 degrees. Coming up at the top of the hour, Mark Miller and Frank DeAngelis will talk about MC1, more open lines, and then John Vandermeer, the giant garage sale. And Vandermeer Speedway goes up today, and John's on the show, and it's very, very, very sweet and sad. This is Joe from Arvada. No morning complete without Joe. You're on the show. Good morning.
I've got to get the book that you just recommended.
The Scientology book? Oh, yeah. I mean, do you know what?
No, they'll follow the plan.
Oh, the QAnon book. It's very good.
Scientology, you take that book and you run over, step on the garbage flip and dump it in the garbage.
Oh, you got to read stuff. You got to know stuff.
Anyway.
Because Scientology, although not Center of Music. Hey, Joe, I'm going to make an exception. Let's see what time it is. It's 56. I'm going to put Joe on hold. Joe, let me get the next couple of guests, and then we'll come back to Joe. Give him a chance, okay? So we take a turnaround right here. When we come back, Mark Miller, Jefferson County, and Frank DeAngelis on Sunday's MC1, ride to support Ryan Applegate. I'm Peter Boyle. Stay here. Morning, everybody. 7 a.m., 7:10 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles in for the guys. They're back on Monday, and I'm back here tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll look at Scientology, part of the show. 7:10 KNUS, standing by, Mark Miller and Frank DeAngelis. In the meantime, let's go into Blake's world and pick up the news. My boy, it's all yours again. And by the way, I'm watching Netanyahu at the UN, and the place is empty. Everybody got up and walked out on him.
Yeah, I was expecting that to happen. I figured, I mean, yeah, it's the anti-Jew, Jew-hating conference until he gets there.
Yeah.
Wow, I got to check that out.
The
Thank
Zionism,
you.
yeah, it's like he's almost speaking to an empty house.
Wow, that is amazing. The world. That was a great interview, by the way, with Father Andre. I mean, so eye-opening, really was.
Thank you.
Great show, Pete. 61, mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 85 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, I'll get to this real quick. Maggie Smith, a lot of people may know her, actress who was the professor in the Harry Potter franchise, has passed away at the age of 89. Helene is now a tropical storm, still has a maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour as it moves across southern Georgia and causing heavy rains and a life-threatening storm surge. At least 6 people have died. The storm should weaken as it moves further inland, though damaging winds are still expected in parts of the southeast. The CU Buffs football team left Wednesday to beat the storm, and they'll play in Orlando tomorrow against Central Florida, which is not in the direct path of the storm. About 2 million customers are without power, the majority of those in Florida. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu in New York City right now, as Pete just said, addressing an empty building room at the UN General Assembly. His speech was delayed 4 days after the Israeli launch of airstrikes against Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Peter had Father Andre on last hour. He was just in Lebanon and had to leave. Today he's in Europe and talked about Hezbollah, former President Trump, and much more.
If a new president comes from Trump, let's say, if Trump becomes the president again, I think the Saudis will have hope that they can rejuvenate, reawaken those treaties, and a new security system or order will have to be happening in the Middle East. The war in the Middle East will not stop. It's depending, it's contingent on the war in Russia and Ukraine, unfortunately. And it is that war, if it's contingent on our war with the Eastern Sea, with China, then I believe President Trump was right all along when he said we are entering in a third world war, and we have the duty as Americans to make sure we don't enter into such horrific times.
And a lot of us believe that is exactly why Trump needs to be the next president. Kamala Khan will be in Arizona today for a trip to the southern border. The border czar for 3.5 years, allegedly. That worked out really well, didn't it? She'll visit the U.S. Customs port of entry and get official briefings on disrupting the flow of fentanyl through the border. Thursday, DJT in NYC.
They come and they keep coming and coming, and nobody has ever seen anything like it. People that go to the border, they look professionals, and they said there's never been anything like this in the history of the world, and they are destroying the fabric of our country. She did nothing to stop any of it. In fact, she encouraged them to keep coming, and you know that for years she did. Only recently did she say, oh, well, we're going to try and put a stop to it.
And the Biden administration is announcing a massive military aid package for Ukraine in its fight against Russia. The nearly $8 billion package announced Thursday includes over $5 billion in weapons from Pentagon stocks and over $2 billion for drones, bombs, and air defense. weapons. RTD isn't commenting on a new report indicating that RTD Police Chief Joel Fitzgerald was fired. RTD employees were notified last week that Fitzgerald had left the agency, but no reason for his departure was given. However, the state's peace officers standards and training database now shows that Fitzgerald was terminated for cause. RTD officials have denied media requests for records related to Fitzgerald's departure. The Cowboys over the Giants last night, 20-15. Once again, CU takes on Central Florida tomorrow, despite the hurricane. The Buffs coming off a thrilling 38-31 overtime over Baylor. Air Force at Wyoming. CSU is off, and Cal Poly is at UNC. 56 in Castle Pines, 58 in North Glen, 61 in Denver. Peter, the Hall of Famer, in for Jeff and Billy, TGIF, Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Don't expect the weather to change much as we head through the weekend. Denver will enjoy sunny, warm, summer-like days, clear, cool nights, and mostly dry conditions through Sunday. Temperature readings will be well into the 80s. Overnight low temperatures will be mostly in the 50s. We do expect a little bit of a cooling trend to arrive Monday and Tuesday, but still dry. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your retirement plans with a free review to help provide asset protection, long-term care, or even income for life. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Morning, everybody. Got a Friday morning and a good show going. Peter Boyle's in for the fellows. They'll be back on Monday. I'm here again tomorrow. It's Friday, September 27th, 2024, and beautiful couple of days. This goes back such a long way into so many different events, but please say good morning and welcome two of the finest I know. First is Mark Miller from Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, and then Frank DeAngelis, of course, the man. Both of them have become just great friends through all of this. First of all, Principal, good morning. Thanks for doing the show this morning, and I know you're going to do it again tomorrow, but welcome back, Frank.
Hey, Peter, good to hear from you and good to see you, and looking forward to this weekend with you and Mark and everyone else.
Coach, good morning, man. Thanks for coming back up on the show. Mark Miller, Jeffco Deputy, thank you for doing it again as well.
Sure. Good morning, Peter. Thanks for having us.
So this goes back, and I was thinking how we're going to put this together this morning. It really, Frank, it goes back to the Keys murder and what happened with Emily Keys. Can you pick that up for a second and tell that part of it, and then I'll get Mark to pick up the other side?
Sure. As a matter of fact, it happened on this date back in 2006. And every morning before I went to work at Columbine, I'd listen to your show, Peter, and you were talking about it, about possibly doing a parade for Emily. And so we got together with the Keys and we met with them and we did first Emily's parade. It was a little less than 10 days after she was brutally murdered up at Platte Canyon. And so we went from Columbine up to Platte Canyon. And I can remember getting there and you and I were kind of looking at each other saying, well, it's the first year we didn't have a lot of time. And then all of a sudden, all these motorcycles start showing up. And I think we were well over 2,500 motorcycles. As a matter of fact, if my memory serves me correctly, the last motorcycles leaving Columbine, the first ones were actually arriving up at Platte Canyon. Yeah. So that started. And then it was from there that the Keys, after 10 years of doing the Remembrance Run, Emily's Parade, decided no longer to do it. And then the MC1 started when Officer Baldwin was killed, unfortunately, on Highway 93, and I'll let Mark talk about that.
What I remember about that first go-round was my boss at the time was Chris Olinger, and John Michael was in the building at the old Clear Channel building, and Christine had a balcony. Frank, you were there. I mean,
yes, I was.
I think, I don't know. I mean, you and I become friends, but And we went out on that balcony, and he showed me the text message on the phone, "I love you guys," that she sent right before her death. And I said, well, let's do a parade. And Mark, that's when you guys got into this. I think this when Jeffco joined us, of course, with Dave Baldwin. And we put on for a decade, we had that great Emily Keys, "I Love You Guys" parade. And then pick it up there when we lose Dave.
Okay, well, it was 2014 when Dave was killed on Highway 93 while he was on duty, and he was our traffic sergeant, motorcycle sergeant for our unit. We wanted to do something for his wife Crystal, and we thought we would, put together a little ride, and we'd leave the Columbine High School and go up Highway 93 where Dave was killed to memorialize him and maybe try to raise a little money for the family. And out of that, we formed the MC1 Foundation, and this is our 11th annual honor run this Sunday.
It is amazing. I can't. So how many years ago did we do Emily's for the first time, Frank? How many years? So that was.
Okay, so it was 2006. So we're talking 18 years. And the first year we did the MC1 run, if my memory serves me correctly, I think we did it in May because Emily's parade was always the last Sunday of the month.
Yes.
Of September. And then so when after John Michael and Ellen said they no longer wanted to do Emily's parade, then we contacted them and said, would it be all right if we did MC1 in September? And they said yes.
Here's something interesting coming up at 9's John Bandemere. And Mark, remember when you guys rode down, John opened up the drag strip, and the police and the honor guard, you rode down the quarter mile. Then it was a quarter mile. Do you remember? I mean, and now John's coming on because, as he calls it, the garage sale. Today is they're auctioning off everything at Bandemere Speedway. Somehow, there's a sadness that goes with that. But I remember so well watching you guys go. We didn't go down the center with you. We didn't deserve to, but the guys went down the center. I think did you ride down the center of the drag strip that day?
Yeah, we did that, Peter. That was our first MC1 run.
Yeah.
That was, I think that was in 2014. That's on the first time we did it. We went up to Bandemere. They had an event going on, but they opened their gates for us, and that was our end location on that first run.
And that's where they teach the motorcycle school. Mark and these other guys who can ride their ears off. And what are you going to do now for a place to teach guys law enforcement riding if Bandemere closes?
Well, we have a new facility that's welcomed us on board, and we're up at Deer Creek Canyon Lockheed facility.
Okay. And back to Frank. Frank, you just came home from D.C. where you testified. Can you take a second with that?
Yes. I got Representative Raskin asked me to come out and talk to an oversight committee, and there were Congress people from Florida, Georgia, and really talking about school safety and what it would entail. And I head up something called the Principals Recovery Network, and there are 21 of us that have had school shootings occur. And my concern is, I stated time and time again, because so many of these states do not want school resource officers in their building. And I really spoke on behalf of the school resource officers being there, because I think so many times what happens is they help in preventing even more casualties from happening. All you have to do is look at Appalachia. The school resource officer was there and the gunman surrendered. And even at Columbine, Peter and Mark, you can remember this. Back in the day, it was something called Secure the Perimeter, and we had school resource officers that could not go into the building until the SWAT team arrived. And now the protocol has changed. Single officers are going in and they're being trained. And so I really spoke on behalf of that. And then the other thing, I think so many times people want to go to, we got to ban weapons and things like that. And I said there's more to it. do we have gun laws that we need to take a look at? Yes, but you can't underestimate the power of having counselors.
A 5-judge panel grilled New York's deputy solicitor.
I'm sorry, that just somebody kicked off a cart. So all of this comes down to this Sunday morning, the 29th of September, at Columbine High School. Doors open, as they say, at 8 o'clock. And this time, it's a South Adams County Fire Department, Ryan Applegate. Mark, talk about what happened to Engineer Applegate.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of us probably saw it on the news. This happened back in December, where there was an accident on I-76, and it was at night. It was dark, and they had a traffic control point, and they had the car shut down while they were doing this accident investigation. And somebody disregarded the traffic control point and blew through their scene and hit 2 Commerce City officers and 2 firefighters. Ryan Applegate was one of those firefighters that was hit. Initially, he was going to lose his leg. However, through several surgeries and a lot of medical attention, he's been able to keep his leg, and he's really fighting to heal up, and he wants to come back to work. And so we chose him as our beneficiary this year to help Ryan and his family out and get him the assistance that he would need, and so he can heal up and come back to work.
It is amazing over the 11 years, with the exception of Dave Baldwin. And I knew Dave. I mean, Frank and I talked about it because I didn't know Frank. I actually didn't know Frank was a deputy. That Dave was a deputy, and he was like this big biker guy that he and his wife, who would come to all of our events and never went out of his way to say, "Hey, oh, by the way, I'm a deputy." And until Frank called me and said, "Did you remember?" And I said, "Of course." And he said he was killed, and that began MC1. And now we are 11 years later. Now we have Ryan Applegate, and I can't tell you guys, I mean, how important all this has been. So, if you ride a motorcycle, what do you do, Mark? How does all of this work come Sunday?
Well, we would love to support. Sunday, this Sunday, we're going to meet at Columbine High School. We're going to start registration at 8 o'clock. You can also pre-register online through today, and then we're going to shut that down tonight. But show up at 8 o'clock, register. We'll stage your bike. We're going to have an amazing ceremony to honor some of our beneficiaries that we've helped throughout the year. And Ryan Applegate will be there. I believe he's going to take the stage and say a few words.
Cool.
Our sheriff, Jefferson County Sheriff Reggie Marinelli, is going to be there. And we're just going to get together, and we're going to do a big ride and hopefully raise some money for Ryan Applegate and some of the other families that we've helped throughout this year.
Doesn't matter what kind of motorcycle you ride, bring it. It's a gas, and you get to see everybody, and you love everybody, and then we go for a long ride, and then we're going to end up at a place for chow and everything. Take a punch at that if you would as well. Mark, where do we end up?
Well, we're going to obviously go up the Dave Baldwin Memorial Highway, which is Highway 93, go up north to the main event, which is in Thornton. It's at 144th and Washington. They've been a great host for us over the last.
Really good to us. Yeah. And then you can just knock around, and you always change. You always get out of your deputy's uniform and become a biker.
Well,
you ever see him, Frank? He's got all his clothes up and he's having a beer.
Well, I do, and I want to enjoy the end of that ride. And so once we get there, and we always lead that with Metro duty uniform motorcycles. So that's kind of one of our little unique traits on this ride. But once we get there to the main event, I like to change my clothes.
Everybody does.
I bring those boots, Mark, that you gave me a few years ago. I wear those boots once a year.
Once a year. They started this thing. Was it you that started, Mark? It's called the Boots. And I got a pair, and DeAngelis has a pair. And when you're, and Frank and I are not big guys. And what do you call those boots that motorcycle officers wear?
Well, they're just the motor boots. I mean, they're a full leather upper. It's like a equestrian riding boot, but you guys wear them one day a year, and then you kind of pay for it all week.
Yes.
Because you know that they're not built for comfort.
No, they are not. And so I wear them once a year, and Frank wears them once a year.
Well, and the older I'm getting, they're starting to come up almost to the middle of my thighs because I'm shrinking.
and I got them, and you tuck your Levi's, tuck your pants down inside of them, and
Right.
actually they're really great windbreakers. They're kind of like cool when you're riding, but so we have, it's the honorary brotherhood of the boot, and DeAngelis and I are the first two members, and I think there's somebody else that ought to be a member too. You knowing who I think it is should be, Mark. So I love you both, and you're going to do the show with me tomorrow at 8 o'clock to pump it again. So first bikes are out at 10, doors open at 8. The ceremony goes about 9:15, all for this fine young man, Ryan Applegate. And truly, you guys, these are two just really remarkable men. Mark Miller, Jefferson County, and Frank DeAngelis, who is dear to my heart. All right, you guys, we'll talk again early. We'll do it at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. How's that?
Great. Thank you,
Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye. Bye. Okay. Now,
Bye.
do we want to pause right here? Yeah, and then we'll come back to open lines. Don't forget, I mean, I'll be plugging it today, and we'll plug it tomorrow on the radio show Saturday morning. Because I'm not working every day of the week these days, and so we can't push it every day, but the 11th annual MC1 Honor Run, if you ride a sickle, the fundraiser ride, and it's fun. I mean, it's not, it's just a kick in the pants, and you're doing the right thing, and you're helping this engineer out. That's what they call them. And it's the 11th annual. So we'll turn 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. Coming up at 9 o'clock, John Bandemere. And this is the garage sale for Bandemere. In the meantime, it's open lines, 303-696-1971. Morning, everybody. It's a Friday morning. Beautiful outside, September 27th. I'm Peter Boyles in for the fellas. 710 KNUS 87, the high 88, and for the MC1, 90 degrees on Sunday. Talk about how smart I am. I'm booking these guys for 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'm not there. I start at 9. So we're like, like cats in a sandbox trying to set Frank and Mark back up again. 8 o'clock. Yeah, sure, Peter. Well, you're on your own. We started, and coming up, John Bandemir. This is the, as he called it, a garage sale. After all of these years, the Bandemirs are having an auction this morning at the Speedway. The talk this morning was about prostitution, sex work should be legalized. And the vice president said she backs decriminalizing, legalizing, if you would, prostitution, and getting your thoughts. All right, so Joe from Arvada waited. Joe, I really appreciate it. I had to get those guys through. So Joe's back up on the air. Go ahead.
I want to say thank you for that because, my dad was a motorcycle cop.
Oh, no. Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Who
yeah,
for what?
For Aurora. And
man.
and he served 17 years. Now, most of the years was patrol because motorcycle cops, man, it's a physical job. And I think he, unfortunately put the bike down a couple of times.
Sure.
Not terrible accidents, but just, close calls. And, but he was my hero, man.
Listen, motorcycle cops, they're mine as well. And they have Mark Miller, who was just with us, is probably one of the finest. Off track. I've watched the super bikes once, watch them run once, and that'll take your breath away. But Mark Miller can ride his rear end off. And if you ever decide to go with those guys, it's like,
I saw what my dad did, and about the most I ever got to get that spirit because of what I saw was when I was a teenager, I had a moped. That's about it.
Well, I've told this before. This is they have a final exam, and I've tried it. And you go to the top of Lookout Mountain, and these guys do it, and you set your bike up, and it's all downhill. Then they turn the ignition off, and they call it a dead stick landing, is what they call it, and you ride from the top. Now it sounds, you ride from the top of Lookout to Golden without, you do it just with gravity and your brakes. And I got as far as the second turn and I had to turn to, because you need the back pressure, you need the gas, stuff. But Mark Miller and those guys, they run that thing effortlessly. And they start out with like 25 guys in a class, and they usually end up with, maybe, and I'm out of line saying this, but less than 10. And I've gone out numbers of times to see them, and it's just a series of guys dropping bikes, but they have crash bars on their bikes. that are huge. And so the bike never, when it starts down, it'll catch itself. But, and we went out to see them, the Top Gun, the best motorcycle police riders that ride into these courses. And Kenny Deal and I went out and watched them. They'll stop your heart.
That's awesome.
They're that good. They're that good. So I think being a motorcycle cop, when you talk to them one-on-one, and they'll tell you it's the best job in the world. You ride your motorcycle all day, and you get involved in high-speed chases and stuff like that. Really? Let me in on that.
My dad, he did all of those, the chases. He got tickets and all of that, but he mostly for most of his career was a beat cop, but he was also a detective at a time. He was plainclothes. He grew a mustache, and
cops are great.
And I want to say this for him because police get a bad rap. In all his years, he was in situations where there were shots fired, but in I believe 17 years on the Aurora PD, he never had to fire a service revolver.
I know guys that take pride in that, and that's probably the most wonderful thing that you never.
He saved lives. Yeah. He actually jumped and grabbed a gun once from a man, but so that's something that I respect about you, and I do. Listen, I respect your career. I think you're an icon. We've always. There's something different about listening to Peter Boyles on the radio. We all know it, and it's great. We come to serve ourselves from what you deliver. It's awesome. But you got it wrong with Trump.
Here comes the but. ...
Yes, it is.
All right, go ahead.
Well, let me say this. I mean, we can go through all the things that have happened. This has been a spectacular season. Look at. Remember Mike Pence? He'll be looked at as Dan Quayle.
Don't bet on that. Do not bet on that.
Look at Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. Despicable human beings. I'm sorry.
Well, Dick Cheney certainly is, and Liz stands alone. But Dick Cheney, everything we talked about this morning with Andre, you can put that on Dick Cheney's lap.
I will tell you that this has been awesome from the MAGA perspective because of this reason. We saw all the outs come out that we were standing on the rooftop screaming, these people are not what they seem to be. And then they got exposed by Donald Trump. And when it's all said and done, we're going to have a much better country because the FBI, the CIA, all of that's going to get turned through.
But Joe,
it is.
I've had this discussion many times. The CIA has been questionable since its founding. The FBI, through all of the Hoover years, was questionable at best. And so now all of a sudden, radio talk show hosts have discovered there's a problem with the CIA or there's a problem with the FBI. They have
isn't that?
No, yes, it is.
We knew that.
No, well,
it's just that nobody did anything about it.
No, there were people that tried, but the CIA.
Well, Donald Trump's going to do it.
Well, again, if you go back and read the history of the FBI since its conception after the Palmer raids, you see this guy. You see Edgar Hoover. This guy at best is who he is. And the same thing's true since the creation of the CIA under Harry Truman. They have been involved in overthrowing governments and doing all kinds of things. Now everybody wakes up to, the CIA. The only time you can really semi-applaud the FBI on that level, not on the rank and file level, but on that level, is the new Nixon books are out. And Nixon went to Hoover to ask him to aid in essence, the plumbers and IRS. Because remember, Nixon uses the IRS as a weapon, and he's weaponizing the Justice Department. He's doing all those things way before anybody else said things to do. But in the meantime, Hoover told Nixon, no, I will not help you. I will not help you.
Well, yeah, look, whether Donald Trump does clean house or not, it's so clear that we have a choice here between American capitalism and, yes, globalism / communism in the Harris, what is his name? Walt.
But remember, I mean, again, Donald Trump has made so many enemies, and he's alienated so many women. And
okay, but set that aside.
No,
I
you
mean,
can't.
Let's,
Joe, you listen to me, please.
You know, when you say that, look, who is Kamala Harris? You know, she's
an unknown.
To me, well, you know what? She reminds me of the ex-wife you find in flagrante, and then even though you have pictures, she says she didn't do it.
No. Listen to me again. Listen to me again. The Trump people set up. We're close to a pause. The Trump people set up to run against Joe Biden, and I agree there was a Palestine.
She's going to lose.
Well, that, my boy, if you read the betting lines,
only way they win is if they cheat.
No, they didn't cheat the last time, and they don't have to cheat this time.
Yes, they did.
All right.
And you're just still didn't get it right.
Okay. Talk to you. Be safe. All right. It is time for the pause. 303-696-1971. We started out with decriminalizing prostitution, and we end up here. So coming up, the one, the only, John Vandermeer. And as he called it to me this morning, we talked, it's a garage sale. After all of these wonderful years of that speedway, and now it gets shut down. And now they're selling it out. And Brian Gray, remember Brian Gray from Alpine Planning, called me last night. And I just may roll out there tomorrow on the show, on the Saturday show, that actually starts at 9. Way to go, Peter. Chris Sheldon, who is, I read this book a couple of years ago, and he was really high level inside Scientology, and he's written a book about it. And it's worth your time. And I mentioned my other, got a bunch of stuff reading right now. There's a new book out, and I got it on Tiger Woods. And I don't know jack crap about golf, but this book about Tiger Woods is what an amazing kid. Oh my heavens. And so Chris Sheldon, and I'm reading this book called Follow the Plan about QAnon. And I'm going, I read the Scientology. Wait a minute. So your calls, if you want to get one in there, 303-696-1971. Werewolf of Boulder, Friday morning, September 27, 2024. Peter Boyle's in for the fellas. 87 today, 88 Saturday, 51 day, 90 degrees on Sunday. Coming up, John Vandermeer will with us. We go to the phones. This is Jay. Jay, thanks, man. You're on the show.
Hey, great to hear your voice, Peter.
Thank you, brother.
Talking about MC1, I remember the largest year, I've been to every one of, including all the Emily Keys. The largest Emily Keys was in 05, and I just bought a new blacked out fat boy that looked like a road king. And I tell you, this is like everybody's new to text, the 5. And guys were texting us that we're getting to Platte Canyon High School, past Bailey, Colorado. And literally we had motorcycles still leaving Columbine High School 35 miles away or so.
That was that, and it was DeAngelis and his brother and me were standing at the gates of Columbine without, I figured, well, if 20 guys show up, we'll ride up there. And it never ended. And I'm looking at DeAngelis and and Dave Baldwin was there. And, oh man, I mean, that was a morning. And then we went up there, and then all these I forget who the sheriff was. I was standing with all these politicians came.
Reams, was it?
No, it wasn't Reams. Reams, I don't think Reams was in office yet, but it was like, but all these politicians came and they wanted to talk. And I said, no. And I forget who I said it to. I said, next year Hillary's coming, but we kept it apolitical. There was a lot of 1%er guys came, and there was law enforcement there, and it just worked. It was just great.
Well, once we arrived at Platte Canyon, then you realized that it's a memorial to the loss of life of those poor children that were taken advantage of, and it was very emotional.
Here's a sleeper
for sure.
The guy that killed Emily, won't say his name. Do you know what he did for a job?
No, but I know he called Vinny's Harley Davidson dealership with a nasty message. I listened to the message. Vinny played it for me.
He had a Vinny card in his pocket when he designed professional haunted houses.
Oh my gosh!
Honest to God,
he lived in the river, the Platte River, in a van down by the river.
Yep.
Just like Chris Farley in that Saturday Night Live sketch. No kidding.
He had built a call it a nest up at that school. I knew, I've learned too much about that. And when they came through the wall, and they killed him, but it was just he walked into that school. He had like kids wear flannel. And he had a flannel jacket on, and he walked right there. You can see him on the cameras coming in with all those kids after lunch. I got to see some of those tapes, and he went back. He went into that classroom and he threw the boys out. And but he designed professional haunted houses. I thought, how creepy is that?
Well, it's horrible. Horrible. And the advantage, like coming up this Sunday, there as usual, and people should just come down and enjoy the visit, and give a little donation if you can, but have fun. Park in the north parking lot. Give a good send off to everybody, and then the group of people that do it, especially the police that you and I both are so familiar with, are just spectacular. They're just spectacular. The event is such a great thing, and it's so great that it's been morphed over from Emily Keys to this, and it's continuing on, and to listen to the widow Crystal Ball.
She'll be with us
and all the thing. It's lovely, and I just love to hear you on the air talking about it, because I was worried. It's like I haven't heard Peter talking about it.
Well, I'm back to I get to do one day a week now on Saturday, and usually we'd start promoting, but the fact that Jeff and the guys actually they filled in for me last Saturday, so I'm trading off with Jeff. And so we get to punch it today and punch it again tomorrow, and people will show up and ride motorcycles, and the weather is going to be beauty. By the way, just between you and I, because I know who you are, have you seen that the bike riders? Have you seen that film?
No, I haven't.
See it. See it. I think it's well done. It's well done.
Yeah, I would love to, and we'll see you Sunday.
All right, Bubba.
Everybody can go online and just just go ahead and throw some money in right there online and enjoy themselves.
Take care.
Sporting, but thank you.
Thank you. All right. Here is my weird prediction, question, thought. Will Diddy become the October surprise? Diddy had those parties, right? Remember? And we've talked about, Jeffrey Epstein. And it turns out now that Epstein was an agent. I mean, it looks like the evidence supports that he was an Israeli agent. But remember when they popped into his safe, he had a legitimate Saudi Arabian passport. How do you do that?
It's amazing what money can buy.
Well, I don't know if it's amazing because the Saudis certainly don't need money, so you can't bribe the Saudis. But he had a legitimate, and it goes back to the CIA. We were talking with the caller about the CIA. But now you got Diddy. And Diddy had a lot of protection. He had a lot of powerful friends. And he threw a lot of parties. And I'm thinking to myself the other day, do you think Diddy will become the October surprise? That there's somebody that showed up or somebody that was part of it or somebody that's on a video. And then they drop that to show you that. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. Along those same lines, should prostitution, sex work be legal? Started the show this morning, filled up the lines with people talking about it. The vice president has said that she will decriminalize, i.e. legalize sex work. And I'm not a big Vice President Harris fan, but to me it makes sense. And we'll get a chance. I don't know how long we'll keep John here. He's got a busy morning, but John Vandermeer coming up. And I don't know if anybody wants to cop to it, but have you ever been inside a legal or government okayed house? And my brother walked me through one in Frankfurt, Germany. I was talking about it earlier. We went to Frankfurt, and he said, I'm going to show you something. And we walked in this big warehouse. There were cops in it. They're German, they're Polizei, I think. And they were inside, one on every floor, two on every floor. They had a bar, and I think it was 2 or 3 floors. I can't remember. But standing outside of like cubicles, there were individual women, and they had their health certificates posted. I guess there's a government doctor that comes around. This was obviously prior to AIDS, but they were like dressed up like Vikings, just every imaginable fantasy that you may have. There's a woman dressed like that. And you could make a deal. You could walk through, and I didn't see anybody out of line. It wasn't anybody crazy. And then I saw Amsterdam. A lot of guys saw Adam and walking down Canal Street and women sitting in the window. Well, I remember a woman sitting in the window reading a book. She had the light on. And I thought, how civilized is this? There's no pimp. There's nobody beating a woman up in the alley, taking her money. There isn't any of those things. And everybody had health cards or health certificates, whatever they were. And I thought to myself, this makes all the sense in the world. But as you know, now in the days of the internet, a friend of mine was talking about the internet, and there's a term for it. They call it online brothels. Now, I know that because I read about it yesterday. Online brothels and adult services is another thing. What do I know? But adult services, the website, online brothels, and remember Players and Sugar. I keep coming back to that. We had a cop call the show this morning, ex-cop or former cop, who said he had actually seen the list, and I want to talk to him. But at the same time, and I was mentioning this, that they were doing John's TV, and they were burning down guys, and there was a fellow that called the show earlier that said, Friday night, the guy's maybe single, maybe he's, in his 60s or 50s or 40s. He's down 5-6 beers, and he hits a bait cop. There's a policewoman staked out, and then he hits on her. And he ends up on John's TV. They don't do that anymore, but they call his boss, call the old lady. And I'm thinking, in the meantime, these high rollers are getting away with whoever knows what at Players and Sugars with 3 locations to serve you.
I just went online to look up online brothels. And right now I'm looking at one that says for a Yelp review, brothels in Denver, the top 10 best brothels in Denver. Legal and right are two different things, I think.
Well, of course, but the point of it is, if the cops want to make that like suddenly now they're going to crack down on license plates, like everybody got an expired plate, and now suddenly they're going to make that an issue. Well, I don't know why, but at the same time that Players and Sugar was rocking, they were popping guys. So Hayden and I went on. We bailed. It was a GI, some airman from Buckley. I think he was a 5 or something or a 6, and we paid his fine, and we hung part of it on Hickenlooper, who eventually gave the money to my old boss Lee Larson, who was eventually not happy with what Hayden and I did. But there's another guy that we met. He was a roofer. That was it. He was a roofer, and he had all his ladders on his truck, and he was down 6 beers on Friday night on payday, and he decides, I think over in West Colfax, he's going to make a deal. And that was it for him. I think it's stupid. Well, in the meantime, the Players and Sugar. Players and Sugar. On the other side, the one, the only John Bandemir. And we'll talk to John about all those years, and today it's a garage sale. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyle. 720-819-5115 is our text line. We're back. Good morning, everybody. Peter Boyle's in for Jeff and Bill. They're back Monday. I'm here tomorrow. It's September 27th, 2024. Good old 710 KNUS, 87 the high, 88 and 90. MC1 Honor Run is this coming Sunday. Coming up, John Bandamere. It's time for Blake's World. And hey, Blake, did you ever go to Bandamere Speedway? Ever go to the drags out there?
I did. I mean, only a couple of times. I'm not a big drag racing guy, but man, the few times I went, it was awesome. And the stands on that south end, I love those bleachers on the south end where you see the starting line. You can just watch it straight down the track. No, it's incredible. My uncle, I think he's probably been there 100 times. Big into drag racing, but just incredible. It's a cornerstone or a staple in Colorado history, no doubt.
The legend is on the line. He'll be joining us after the news. Here's
Awesome.
Here's Blake in the news. Good morning.
All right. Good morning, Pete. Great show. 65, mostly cloudy in Denver. Expecting a high of 85 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
We rescued 13 people last night with boats. Included in those 13 people included 6 dogs and 1 cat. We did have 2 confirmed fires.
Emergency Management Director David DiCarlo, at least 7 people are dead after Helene made landfall last night. The former Category 4 hurricane has a maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour as it rolls across southern Georgia and is causing heavy rains and life-threatening storm surge. Atlanta is under a flash flood emergency today for the first time ever in the history of the city. Almost 4 million customers are without power. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is expected to plead not guilty to federal corruption charges today. Prosecutors hit him with a 57-page indictment Thursday, claiming Adams accepted lavish gifts and trips from Turkish officials looking to buy his influence. Adams denies it, says he's done nothing wrong, and has no plans to resign. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says his country is fighting for its life. He addressed the UN General Assembly in New York City today, mostly empty seats. Netanyahu addressed the address comes as tensions continue to rise in the Middle East, with Lebanese officials reporting Israeli airstrikes killed more than 600 people and displaced thousands of others. During his speech, Israeli leader recounted the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas and also threatened Iran with retaliation should they attack Israel. Father Andre on with Pete this morning. He just left Lebanon and in Europe today.
If a new president comes from Trump, let's say, if Trump becomes the president again, I think the Saudis will have hope that they can rejuvenate, reawaken those treaties, and a new security system or order will have to be happening in the Middle East. The war in the Middle East will not stop. It's depending, it's contingent on the war in Russia and Ukraine, unfortunately. And it is that war, if it's contingent on our war with the Eastern Sea, with China, then I believe President Trump was right all along when he said we are entering in a third world war, and we have the duty as Americans to make sure we don't enter into such horrific times.
That was fascinating this morning. Kamala Khan in Arizona today for a trip to the southern border. She was the border czar, remember that, for 3.5 years, allegedly. Former President Trump talked to Ukrainian President Zelensky today, says he has a strong relationship with both Zelensky and Putin. On Thursday, Trump met with financial coach Dave Ramsey, who always plays it down the middle of the road.
Hey, guys. Well, our team reached out to both Vice President Harris's camp and President Donald Trump's camp about the opportunity to sit down and talk about ideas. Now, keep in mind, what happens in your house is more important than what happens in the White House. But I'm standing in Trump Tower, and I just finished interviewing President Donald Trump. It's a great interview. You're going to want to see it. We'll post it next week.
So Harris declined or didn't get back to him. The Biden administration is announcing a massive military aid package for Ukraine in its fight against Russia. The nearly $8 billion package announced Thursday includes over $5 billion in weapons from Pentagon stocks and over $2 billion for drones, bombs, and air defense weapons. The Cowboys beat the Giants last night, 20-15. CU takes on Central Florida tomorrow. 61 in Boulder, 63 in Greenwood Village, and 65 in Denver. Peter the Great in for Jeff and Billy. TGIF, have a great weekend. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Don't expect the weather to change much as we head through the weekend. Denver will enjoy sunny, warm, summer-like days, clear, cool nights, and mostly dry conditions through Sunday. Temperature readings will be well into the 80s. Overnight low temperatures will be mostly in the 50s. We do expect a little bit of a cooling trend to arrive Monday and Tuesday, but still dry. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your retirement plans with a free review to help provide asset protection, long-term care, or even income for life. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Peter Boyle's in for the fellas. Good morning. It's a Friday, September 27, 2024. A couple days headed your way. I can't even count how many radio shows we did together, television shows we did together, kindness that he showed me and my family. He is indeed one of those legendary people that I've been lucky enough to know. And today at Bandimere Speedway, John called it a garage sale. I got a call from Brian Gray who said it was an auction. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, John Bandimere. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. And thanks for that intro. You know what? We love you and we appreciate you. And we're thankful for every one of those moments that we had a chance to be together.
Well, those things. And then all the people I've gotten to meet because of you. And, you know, I mean, because like I'm an old guy, but when I was a kid, I mean, drag racing, and you lived it. I just watched it. Drag racing was everything, wasn't it?
Oh boy. Yeah. Well, it's the automobile has been such a major, piece in our history. And I think that it's been interesting because, I don't know why it is, but there's something that's just inside of some of us that we just like to go fast. And
Yes.
This morning I've been riding my little bike around, and my daughter said, "Dad, just do me a favor and don't fall down, please." Okay, all right, I'll be careful.
After everything that you've done with speed and cars, and then as we get older, and I have this going on too. Do you find your kids are trying to tell you what to do?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, but you know what? I really feel very strongly that it's their turn. It's their time, and I'm thankful for that I do have kids that have grown up in the industry, and we do a lot of stuff together. We now have, since we've talked, we had our 9th great grandchild. Our 10th great grandchild is on the way in about 30 days, and so you can imagine the family just keeps growing.
Yeah, we've turned into different guys. I watched my grandson play football, and we went to old Chicago, and I get up. No, you're Peter Boyles,
Yeah.
What happened?
Oh, I know.
Oh, now comes
What's
this.
going on?
Well, I want to ask you because, first of all, what is today about? And I told you Brian Gray called me last night to tell me about this. What all will be auctioned? I mean, I'm going to come out. I got to make sure I get there. So what are you going to do?
All right. Well, I'll just kind of give you a real quick brief. a year and 3 months ago, we entered into a contract to sell the property to a company called Copart. It's been a very tough battle to try to get things done, but it's worked out. And finally, everything has been done with annexation into Morrison and zoning for the property for them to do what they want to do, which is exciting for the family because the property will continue to be in the automotive industry for probably the rest of its life. I don't know of any piece of property that Copart has ever sold. We have about 200 and maybe 25 locations around the world. And so we're excited about that. The sale, we're supposed to close on Tuesday, and I pushed it back a little bit. I know it's crazy to say you don't need the money. I do need the money, but the point is we wanted to have a closing day here at the racetrack where we could have a prayer walk and so on. That hasn't been announced, but it will be announced in just the next couple of days, and that'll be the end of October. But what's been happening is in 65 years, Peter, it's amazing. I thought we got rid of a lot of the stuff, but it seems like what we have done over the years is rent containers and store stuff. And it's just been amazing, the amount of stuff. So we have had a garage sale about a month and a half ago and sold a lot of stuff. And then we had an auction with roller auction that took place 2 weeks ago. And everything that was in that auction sold. People picked it up and it's gone. And now this is kind of the final cleanup of everything in the way of signs and banners and tools and office equipment and just, general everything that we have. And we're having today and tomorrow, which God's blessed us with really good weather, which we're thankful. And so that's really our point is here is whatever we get rid of now, then within once you close, it's no longer your property, it's theirs, and you got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so in the meantime, just keep going. We have put money down on a really nice piece of property up in the north, close to the Hudson area. And we're in the due diligence period. You say, well, why would you do that? And the answer to that is, first of all, I think it just makes common sense. When Dad bought the property way back years ago in 1980 or 58.
If I can interrupt, you're listening to John Bandemere. For the next 2 days, it's the auction out. What year, and I know this because I read the book, but what year and how much money did Senior pay for that strip of land that's there now?
In 1958, he purchased this property from three landowners out here for $13,000. And the thing is of course, it's gone up in value quite a bit.
Oh.
I never will forget my dad before he passed away. Passed away in April of 1986. He said, "Now, kids, if you're really smart and you're really careful, this property is going to be worth $1 million someday. So just remember that, And I think about it, and honestly, Peter, when I think about that, it makes me cry.
Oh, sure.
Because the thing is I don't want to leave this place.
No.
I mean, this has been home.
It is.
And it's an icon, so to speak,
John,
along the highway. But you know what? We ran out of space, and all of the rigs got bigger and bigger, and the sport has gone faster and faster. I mean, think about it. They're going 300 miles an hour in an eighth mile.
Yes.
And I mean, 340 in a quarter mile. It's just, in 1,000 feet. But anyway, it just has, and then of course everything has grown up around us out here, and it just changes,
When you were a kid, and when did the big name guys start to come? When the Nationals came, what year was that?
1978 was the first sports nationals, and then we brought the pros in the next year in 1979. So it's been a long time.
Well, I was telling everybody because I know that the end is around the corner, but the beginning is also around the corner. But they used to do a thing called match racing.
Yes,
and there's a documentary. It's not a documentary because they got actors in it, but it's called Snake and Mongoose.
Right.
Have you seen it? I'm sure you have.
I have, yes. And
And
I had Snake and Mongoose here.
I met both of them
yeah.
because of you.
Yeah, right.
I met them. I mean, I've told people I met the Snake, and and I was telling somebody, you brought Big Daddy to the radio station.
Yes, I did. That's right. I remember that.
And he was okay about cars, but he wanted to talk about the conspiracy.
I know it. I know it. Yeah.
He was a great guest. I mean, I'm sitting there
Yes, he
talking.
was.
I said, yeah, I'm talking to myself, Peter, you're talking. And we watched those guys. What were they called? I think they were sponsored by Dodge, and they were young engineers, and they.
Yes.
What were they called, John? They were called.
It was the Direct Connection.
Yeah.
And then it went on, and now it's called Mopar.
Yes.
And that's it. Yeah. Big Daddy had been sponsored by Chrysler and Dodge for years and years. But you know what? Our event here, we were sponsored by Chrysler, Dodge, Mopar, etc. for 35 years. It's the longest running sponsorship ever in any type of motorsports. And by the way, they have already called us and said, as soon as you get the other one done, we want to be there.
See.
And so it's kind of, in a way, it's humbling, but yet it's exciting to come up with something. And the thing is we're excited about it, but today we're surrendering the mountain. That's what we've come up with a name, and we got T-shirts and sweatshirts and signs and stuff that say we're surrendering the mountain. So those are kind of some of the things that are here. Also, they're not necessarily a garage sale item, but they're something that people can come out and pick up on. And I hope you do come out.
Oh, John,
I'm
get a
chance to see you.
Now I got to make a couple phone calls when the job's over, but no, I'm talking to Brian Gray. He wants his daughter's here. She works for NASCAR, and we're talking about going. I said, that mountain. I mean, I can't tell you how many Friday nights far on the mountain, and I for the first time in my whole life, because when they used to promise Chuck Berry was coming to do it. I'm not making John Vandermeer and Peter Boyles, and then he'd get arrested. And I'm a kid. I'm not love Chuck Berry, and I'm a kid, and they say, "Hey kids, next Sunday, Chuck Berry," and it's going to cost more money to get in. I didn't care. I was going to go see Chuck, and they'd always flop. You had Chuck Berry. You had Chuck Berry.
I did. He was really a piece of work. I'll tell you that.
Stories.
Man, I mean, that guy had a need for more towels than anybody I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what the deal was.
Did you have to pay him in the front?
Oh yeah. Well, I had the Everly brothers, and when the Everly brothers came, I didn't do that myself. I did that through Vickers, one of the Vickers boys, and he made a lot of money, and I lost a lot of money. And I said, I'm not going to be involved in this concert deal anymore. What was the guy's name that handled all the concerts for years and years?
Barry Fay.
Barry Fay. Yeah. So I went and saw Barry Fay and sat down with him. Barry says, John, you don't need anybody. Just do it yourself.
Yeah.
I said, okay. So I booked in Chuck Berry. I still lost money, but you know what? It was amazing to see him. And, it was great. It was awesome.
Well, Fay,
Go ahead.
Fay always said, and other people said, that if you didn't pay him in the front, he's not going on.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right. And I wondered if he was going to go on even if I paid him in the front.
Oh yeah.
It was a flake.
Ooh. And the other day, we were just talking Barry Fay stories and stuff. Barry Fay brought. I don't know if you ever did Jerry Lee, but he had Jerry Lee, and that was.
No, I didn't know.
And Bob and I emceed it, and it was like. It was like, as well, he had the tightest band. I think those Southern bands just stay together all their lives, and they were killing it, and they finally brought him out. It was but he's I just finished a book called Elvis and the Colonel about Tom Part and Elvis, and I keep thinking like you and me and all the stuff that we saw when what was your first car? John Vandermeer's here. What was your personal first car?
I had a 1953 Ford V8 that my dad had purchased to supercharge with McCulloch superchargers.
McCulloch, sure.
And I had that on there, and man, I had a lot of fun with that car. I really did. You're just mentioning all the old stuff. In hanging up in here, one of the things that we found was a KIMN poster.
Wow.
And KLAK. And all the different ones that were sponsors, during the years when we were way back in the 70s. I have posters that are here from 78 and 79 and 80, 81, like that. I said to Lorraine, I said, honey, why did you keep all of this stuff? It was all rolled up, and but it's been fun to be able to put out and let people have a little bit of history,
Do you know the names of the jocks that were on the poster? Because they always, I got some stuff from the day as well, and your name's always honored some other guy's name. Do you remember the names of the guys who are on the Kim poster?
I don't.
I'm going to look at it.
This particular one doesn't have any names on it. What was the Tim Kazava?
Oh, Steve Kelly.
Name.
Steve Kelly.
Steve Kelly. Yeah. His brother is a drag racer.
Yes.
Comes out in drag races all the time. So.
Oh, they had. I mean, that place, Bannermere Speedway. Friday nights. It was Friday nights when the Nationals were here, and then you start putting on the show with jet cars.
But that was the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a pyro. You can't love cars and performance and not love blowing things up.
Of course.
And so I brought in Benny the Bomb, remember?
We've talked about the Bomb many times.
He blew himself up on the starting line.
Yes.
I still couldn't believe that.
Yes.
But yeah, it was just all of those things are fun to remember. And now it's exciting. It's fun for me to see my grandkids and my kids and grandkids and then great-grandkids all have an interest in this and making sure that it's the platform. We want the platform to go on, and we want God to be honored. And if he wants us to go on and do something, then we want to do exactly what he wants. And that's kind of where things are at right now. But
it's going to happen. I mean,
I'm going to hate to leave you, but I'll tell you what.
All right.
There's a whole bunch of people here that I can't believe they want my signature, but I got to sign some.
Do you remember we did a whole radio show on crazy acts that came to the Strip or came to the dirt track? Benny the Bomb, and even in Sturgis, the guy that does the Wall of Deaths and all those guys, John, and then blowing stuff up. That's who we are.
Yep, that's it.
Listen, I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Love you too.
I'll see you this afternoon.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
John Vandermeer. You can hear him, his emotions.
How cool is that?
Oh, listen.
Oh my gosh, dude! How cool! I just listened to history. Between you two, I just listened so much history, dude.
Vandermeer is like, he really is the legit guy. I was just the kid that I was in Pittsburgh. There was you could go to Erie, and it was called Presque Isle Timing Association. You could go to Salem, Ohio, or a place called Mercer, and they had drag strips. And then the dirt track was called Heidelberg. And I think I might have been 13, but we would go to the races, and it was such a part of us. It was, and then you saw all the lunatics. And he talked about Benny the Bomb. This is, and it sounds crazy, but this guy would literally blow himself up on the backstretch of Heidelberg Speedway. But he was one of those guys that wore the white suits, and they'd knock him off all the time in the Simpsons. He would always say, "Kids, I don't want to try." But then there'd be another guy, and they would build like this, whatever it was, the part of the wall of death stuff, and then they would light it on fire. And he had like a Harley Ironhead or some kind of motorcycle. Well, I'm pretty sure it was a Harley. And he'd go around the track. It was pre-Evel Knievel. And then they'd light it on fire and they'd pour like gas on it or something. And he'd ram it down, man. He'd stand on it and he'd drop his head like he had a helmet on, like right above the gooseneck. Wham! He'd go through those boards. We'd be up there. Yes. Yes. And then the stunt, Joey Chitwood. Wow, where's that coming from? Joey Chitwood and those guys that go up on two wheels. When they would,
Yeah, I remember though.
They go up on two wheels and then drive on two wheels, and I think they drove Fords, but I saw because of him, because of Bandemir. I met Art Arfonz's, I think it was Art's daughter, and we all went to see Art Arfonz, and he had a car. Somebody else joined in us. It was called the Green Monster. And it had a aircraft engine. He went to a jet car, but he had I don't know what it was, a Cummings or something. And he almost literally sat under it. And it was called the Green Monster. And he had, and they'd have like double tires in the back. And
I remember seeing pictures of that. I never saw it live.
Well, Bandemir told me Art Arfonz was crazy. Half the guys that show up there were crazy. But he said, no, Art Arfonz was like one of a kind. But we went to Salem, Ohio to see Art Arfonz, who was from Ohio. But his daughter, they were running a jet car. And I was out there with Bandemir. You know, I'd walk around behind him, you know. And I met all the legends, you know, I truly did. And John bring him to the studio. And then he'd sit there and they'd tell stories. But the Mongoose came and the Snake came and Daddy came and John Force came and I would just sit there and say, these were Mongoose and the Snake, Prudhomme. They were racing when I was, you know, a young man.
Well, we lived that life. That was drag racing. That was hot rods. That was the whole 9 yards.
They used to match race, and I didn't know what they were doing until much later, and Bandemir explained it to me. But they would travel for money and race each other for money. They knew each other. And so, I mean, and it wasn't like there wasn't any working going on. They were shooting and all that stuff. And now John, and he was always so good. You want to come? Yeah, sure. You know, you want to sit in a press box? I'd love to, and sit up there with him and just watch him go. And I remember taking my son when he was as old as my grandson is now, and we went out to the finish line, and he was, I don't know, probably as old as Liam now. And you could feel them. And that was still quarter mile running. And they were right at 300 or right under 300 at the time. And they'd go through the traps and you could feel the exhaust hit your chest. Oh man. And then he had the nitro bikes, the Harley Davidson nitro races. And I got invited to be a part of a pit crew on a nitro bike. And I don't know anything about anything, but part of their deal was you got to take a teaspoonful of nitro and drink it and eat it. So, and it won't kill you. And the guy said, but if I took it out there and put it on the ground, hit it with a hammer, he said, we'd have a problem. So I was hanging out these nitro bike racers. And so the guy said, well, I was trying to help and I can't do anything except lift or carry. He said, get my jacket. Come on, I get my jacket. I picked that. It looked like a biker jacket, but I picked it up and it was like must have weighed 300 pounds, all Kevlar, all lead lined, down through his groin, down the insides of his legs, because those bikes would grenade. And he's out on the starting line and they start those nitro bikes up. And I'm thinking, and I've been a motorcycle rider pretty much all my life. And I thought, how are you going to get on this thing? But I remember I said, get my jacket. And I went just to pick up like my motorcycle jacket, pick it up. And it was all lead lined and Kevlar lined down the arms. And the pants came up real high and they were lead and Kevlar. And those guys were, now that's nuts. and big fat tires on the back and the bikes that just, they were just deadly, but fast. I don't know. And then then you meet all the old legends and stuff like that. So today at Bandemir, If you want to see him, I think I'm trying my best to get out there with Brian Gray. One more time, walk around, take a look at it. So we need to take a turn here. 303-696-1971 is our phone number. The MC1 Honor Run is Sunday. That's open lines. Whoever saw Benny the Bomb, the guy that blew himself? And there must have been a couple guys who were nuts enough to blow themselves up. Or you go to those races, and I still go to the Wall of Death. Every year in Sturgis, the guy's name is Rick Rotten. And he's Australian. And they put the siren on before he goes. You go in there, and the guys first they ride go-karts on the wall, then they come up. This guy's got an old beat. He's got an Indian. He's got an Indian that's like, I don't know, like a 48 Indian. And you can lean over and he'll take the money out of your mouth if you go by. I love stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Let's turn around. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles, back here tomorrow morning at 9. We're going to do Scientology tomorrow. Stay here. We're in the home stretch right now. Lines are wide open. 303-696-1971. They're lighting up. I'm Peter Boyle is in for Jeff and Billy. They're back Monday. And in spite of my billboarding the guys at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'm on at 9 o'clock tomorrow. And of course, the guys will be with me tomorrow, Frank DeAngelis and Mark Miller. Anything you want to know about the MC1 Honor Run, you can go to our website or go to the YouTube and look. But it's Sunday. If you're a sickle rider, Columbine High School at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're out of there at 10, and everything will be wrapped up and raise money for fallen officers and first responders. And this year, he's an engineer. His name is Ryan Applegate. He will be with us. Also tomorrow, Scientology, A to Xenu, Insider's Guide to what Scientology is really all about. We'll do that. And we're going to go to the phones in just a second. Oh, okay. We'll start here. We'll go to Hunter. Like your name. Hunter, good morning. Thanks.
Hey, Pete, we met over at the Black Eyed Pea a couple of weeks ago.
Hey,
you've just taken me back to 12 years old, lived in Chicago, and we had US 30 drag strip. And the buzz line was US 30 drag strip, drag capital of Chicagoland. And they had Big Daddy Garlits, all the names you're tossing around. I grew up with that stuff.
Well, I tell you, my mentor is a guy named Bob Lee, and Bob grew up and jocked in Detroit. He was the rock and rebel Robert E. Lee, and almost every one of those commercials were done in XYZ Chicago. You remember, and it was and the way he told me how they did it. And there's a thing they're called spit screens in our business, and they fit across the microphone, and 3 guys, and one guy's whole job was to scream Sunday.
That's it.
And And the other guy would do, and then Bob would say, Chris Karamides, the mad Greek, doing wheel stands 15 feet in Sunday. The other guy, Sunday. Remember those? I mean, they were like, and they were, they were all done pretty much in one studio, but they would, it's like pro wrestling. They'd get the script for like Chicago Dragway, or the same thing would be for like Presque Isle Timing Association, which they called it. And they would do, and Bob said there was 3 of them, and they made good dough doing it. But the one guy's job was to do Sunday. The other guy said Sunday. And then
they'd scream at you, you know, Sunday, beautiful US 30 drag strip, drag racing capital of the world.
Yes. Yes. Now, what? None of my business, but how old are you?
Oh, I'm 74.
All right. So what is it about? And I think it still goes on, but what is it about us in that time period that's what we wanted to do?
Oh, I have no idea. Just, you know, cars were such a major part of the culture.
Everything.
And those cars were just crazy. But like I said, I just cannot. When you started talking like that, I was hearing that in my head. And I heard it from about 10 years old till I left Chicago.
What was Bandemir Bandemir, when I became friends with John, and I love John, then he let me on the inside, and then he said, you want this guy or that guy on the show? And are you kidding me? And they were like, I looked up to those guys. And do you remember any of those guys that would come put those thrill shows on, that would ride a motorcycle through a wall of flame? And you remember that stuff?
Yeah. You know,
God,
vaguely.
There was a dirt track that was south of Pittsburgh, and it was called Heidelberg Raceway. Now, and we would go with, you know, a couple of the other guys, and then somebody's lunatic father would drive or something. We'd all go, and we'd sit on the turn. So when they came by, they'd throw dirt clods would come through the fence, and that was big stuff. And watch wrecks, and then when the fireworks came and they blew stuff up, what is it inside and maybe it's teenage boys, maybe it's old men. I love seeing stuff get blown up.
Oh, the most fun one can have before the age of 20 is watching things or participating in blowing stuff up.
Where did you get? Because Pennsylvania, the fireworks, you couldn't get them, but the hoods would go down to West Virginia, and or I don't think they went to Ohio. I think they went to West Virginia, and then they sell them out of the trunk of their cars in the alley behind the pool room. And
You know, it was a different world.
oh, I worked in a pool room. I was a rack boy, but you make $6 or something, $5, and go out in the alley and buy cherry bombs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Cherry bombs and M80s.
And somebody called them Mexican toilet crackers. I didn't know what they were, and they were the M80s. They had the fuse in the middle.
Yeah, the M80s were, and they were silver, and and both waterproof. So when you did light it and toss it in the toilet and flush it, well,
that's what they called them. And they say, "How
school
much?"
was out for the day.
How much in the Mexican toilet crackers? There's 3 for $1. Give me 6. Like, and I did, like they'd blow a kid's hand off.
Oh yeah, careful, you'll blow your eye out. Yeah,
shoot your eye out. But then we just, who did I have this conversation with? Oh, we did First Guns a week before I went away, and we're 22s and BB guns, and we had them.
Yeah,
and nobody got mad.
Remember 22 shorts,
and then they had long rifles, LRs, and
they had long rifles.
Yeah, LRs.
Yeah,
and you shot the shorts. It was how many were in a box? 25 or 20 in a box, or
no? There were 50.
50. Was it that many? For like how much was it, Hunter? Like $4, $3.
I've got a box of long rifles here from when I was a kid. 75 cents.
Yeah,
for 50. Still got the sticker on it.
See, and nobody had any problem selling you ammo, did they?
No. Yeah. I used to go into the hardware store.
I went down Allegheny River Boulevard last weekend through downtown Verona, and nothing's the same, right? But I'm pointing out, and that's where the gun guy was, and we'd go in and hang out with him. Like, he was a cool guy, he was an older guy. And we'd say, "Can I see that rifle?" Yeah, take it down, hand it to the kids. We jack it around, and nobody, I don't think my mother and father ever got upset. And where were you?
No.
Down looking at guns. And
they're in Chicago back then. It was illegal even back then to have a gun store. So all the gun stores were right around the periphery of the city. And there was an ex-Cubs, I think he was a Cubs player. His name is Gabby Hartnett. And there was this Gabby Hartnett's gun store and range.
There you go.
And my dad used to take me there all the time. And it was just a hoot.
No, we lived it, and it was like, and all that stuff. It was music and cars, and one day it was girls.
Yep.
And so
my downfall.
Yeah, yours. We need. Listen, we need. They were telling me we need to go to Rick, but that was. And I tell everybody, when they say the gay men have a choice, all I want to know was, when was my choice day? Because
I just wanted to thank you. I mean, all of a sudden, this stuff came flooding back, and I could just hear it all over again.
Be safe. Thanks, Hunter. Everybody, hold on a second. I'm Peter Boyles. This is 710 KNUS. We got about 60 seconds. Thank you very much. It was a really, really fun show to do. And to John Vandermeer, thank you. And Frank DeAngelis and Mark Miller and Father Andre, and everything just came together. Back tomorrow morning at 9, Peter. And Chris Sheldon will be in studio Scientology from A to Xenu. And this guy's an interesting guy. I've known him a while. He was raised in a family of Scientologists, and he joined the Church of Scientology right out of high school. And he worked for the church for 25 years, most of which he spent in Scientology's highest levels, the Sea Org. And 13, he left Scientology, and they've been on his case. They're not particularly crazy about me, but there's so much about this and the hold that they have. They had it on Hollywood pretty stiff, and it's kind of broken away. But it is frightening stuff. And I said earlier, the other book I'm reading, my fun book I'm reading, is entitled, and it's a super spooky book. It's called Follow the Plan, about QAnon. And I found myself with Scientology and QAnon, which one's crazier? And I think it's Scientology. Believe it or not, Scientology is crazier than QAnon. So you can begin there and have any idea. But he's coming in studio tomorrow, and the fellows will come back. Don't forget the MC1 Foundation. The honor run is Sunday. Columbine High School on-site registration. The ceremony, the bike's out at 10 o'clock, will be done early. And this young man that got ran over by a drunk driver, he's a firefighter engineer. His name's Ryan Applegate, and I think he's going to be there with us as well. So, John, good job. Adam, good job. Mark Crowley, good job. Thanks. It's good to be on the job. The fellows will be here back on Monday morning. And like I said, I got tomorrow. It was interesting. I'm booking guys for like 8:30, 8 o'clock. Let's do 8 o'clock. And I said, Peter, the guys came in. Adam came in and said, boss. I said, what? He said, you don't work until 9. I said, ooh, that's not real smart. So maybe we can lead with this again tomorrow, because it took off, and then going to Lebanon with Father was so powerful. But about the prostitution and sex work. And is a sex worker a hard worker, right? But have you ever been to a legal or a government okayed house of prostitution? And if so, what do you think? Because as you know, I mean, rape is a crime of violence. It's not a sex crime. It's a crime of violence. And again, my sleeper is, will this whole Diddy thing become the October surprise? And it's entirely possible. The music is there. I'll see you tomorrow morning. The Caldera show goes early, and then I do 9, and we'll do 9 to 1. And then I'm going to go to Devil's Head Chopper, see the boys. Thank you. It was a fun show, and thanks to John Vandermeer. Good job, Johnny. I'll see everybody tomorrow morning at 9 here on 710 KNUS.